Hi everybody, today I would like to discuss the Artificers, which are the witches and their wardrobes. I think it's a very applicable title for this particular work. Witches change their wardrobes to dilute images using spirits trapped in props. Props are not only physical vestiges or vessels, but also belief systems, cults, and mythologies, as well as historical data as well. This is not going to be about history, but I will be bringing up things to correlate the points that I'm trying to make. We are looking at a deconstruction of flawed repetitive mythologies and ideologies with regards to how spirits are being used to be trapped into for political and material gain, because it's always about that, remember? It's about the control over dominion. So today we will be looking at how artificers change the narratives by way of hijacking mythologies. It can even be as simple as a person who thinks he hears something and completely misinterprets it into something completely different. Much like what people are doing these days, stealing people's work and then respinning it to make it sound like they came up with the whole thing. So that is a sickness that needs to be addressed. Then again, I suppose they don't know any better because they are living in circles within themselves. So we will be looking briefly again at understanding how projection works via images projected into the realm using the torus as a symbol via the trapezoid as symbolic as well. We will look at the dynamics of mythologies and religions as well. We'll touch briefly on them. I'll highlight a few things in there in the details that are important to understand. We will look at the masculine and feminine principles of man within these images, within these materials that I will be bringing up, and you will understand why it's important to be mindful of that. We will look at Gnosticism. We will look at the Ophites. We will touch again on Mithras in a different way. We will look at Rhea, who is the Hellenistic Greek goddess of or mother of all gods. So we will look at those things. We will look at Saturn. And before I start, I just want to say this is not about a gender lesson at all. This is purely metaphysical in all of its material, all of its parts that I'm going to be discussing with you. The witch's wardrobe is the appropriate example for the architecture of mythologies and belief systems, the most important thing to be mindful of. Before we can understand this, we would need to look at the architecture of the torus again, how it operates and all the other elements within it, the trapezoid, the foundations, etc. So this first part will be more detailed with regards to that aspect. The discussion is, as always, based on the metaphysical aspect in terms of the details within it. If you are new, you have no understanding of what I'm saying to you, please look at the video of Metaphysics 101 and you'll understand how to understand this work. It's not a way that you have to, it's not a harness that you have to put on your head to understand it in a certain way. It is literally a very logical metaphysical explanation to how things are in relation to our spirit, to where you are. If you are new, welcome to my channel. The work that you are seeing with regards to deep stuff is based on a playlist or is in a playlist. If you have no understanding of what I'm saying about the torus and the trapezoid, please go to the first video on the deep stuff, and then follow and make your way through to Beyond Thunderdome. That is the most important one with regards to the torus and the trapezoid. Everything else relates to the parts of that particular model. The introduction on the torus and the manufacturing or the things in the background. Before I start that, I first want to say this. There is a very small percent of supernatural spirit beings that exist alongside a bigger percentage of human spirit. So if you are looking for things that go bump in the night or demons or any of those things, those almost guaranteed are based on human spirits that have been used and trapped and subjected to specific purposes. That's how that is how desperate people are. These cult um, workers. It sounds quite bad when I say that, but anyway, they use spirit energy for its psychokinetic power. That is what it's for. Okay. However, um, a person who's lived in a life who has been subjected to a lot of things like trauma and all of that stuff doesn't mean that you're unable to get out of it. But I'm saying that the a person or a child who is unaware, whose psychokinetic power is still very, very strong, those people are normally used as the victims for their rituals. Uh, Most of this is done in order to capture a supernatural being, a supernatural spirit, and you do get them. The celestials are part in part supernatural, and there are human spirits that were trapped in their houses. These houses are the vessels or the containers through in which these supernatural spirits had or exist within. You have a container around you as a human. That is your vessel, your physical form, your material of what you exist within, and your spirit is within you in that way. And that is how you need to look at that. The supernatural part or the supernatural spirit essence in itself, the more people they can take to do their rituals with. It can be any sort of ritual, it can be a type of stalking or to create an energetic charge within you. That energy is what they need for their work that they do. So if they can get you in a distressed state, if they can get you in a panicky, worried state, or just generally distress you all the time, they are living in from your energy, your psychokinetic energy. That is the PK energy, or what it used to be called vril. Okay, so understand that that in itself is the psychokinetic energy, PK, and I'll call it that. Whereas the supernatural spirit is a different kettle of fish altogether. You would look at uh, the rituals that have been done to try and capture these supernatural entities. For the most part, if they could trap it by using a lot of extra energy. Energy draws energy. It's based on that principle. So if you have a lot of, let's say, the mass, a mass ritual takes place, and a lot of people are no more there, their spirit energy is used and put together to draw a big supernatural entity to them. In the last deep stuff material, a great deal of information has been cleared up about the torus and how it's constructed and why it works and why it's the only metaphysical model that actually can explain everything. And that this is why this channel is so unique, because this is a very unique model to discuss. Although I've seen lots of people copying. Uh, it's really funny actually. But anyway, so I touched on the trapezoid in flipping the runes in the Temple of Set. That's one of the videos that I have added to a playlist called Artificers, so that you understand the dynamics of the magic that happens in a trapezoid. And so we will now go deeper into the same material, into the same depth of the trapezoid and how it functions in this particular aspect. The torus in review. In the torus and how the dynamics of its construction was also reviewed as the artificers within the trapezoids, or the order of the trapezoid. That is why I'm saying go to that one video that I've made. I will put the links and the references at the bottom so you can understand where to go and where to look so that you are not completely lost. So trapezoid, that seems to have been vast system. And by the way, I read from my own notes, okay, and where I have gotten material from elsewhere, I actually say that I've taken it from somewhere and I quote from it. That is something that doesn't seem to happen these days. People don't respect other people's work. They just hammer through if it's their own. So I will always do this. Okay. So if you see me looking down, I'm reading from my own notes because it's a lot of notes. I can't remember it all at the same. It's too much. Like I said, the flipping the runes in the Temple of Set is the first video that I've touched on in terms of the magic that happens in the trapezoid, whereas the deep stuff Beyond Thunderdome video is about what the model is. So, and then the other videos are related to the system overlay, the luminiferous ether. So I've broken everything up into parts so you understand how it works. The trapezoid, or the order of the trapezoid, that seems to be a vast system of smaller cults, because that's what it looks like, and organizations that actually kind of work all together in a bigger machine that upholds and uses the power to control the pattern in this realm. They have a pattern that they follow. They call it the pattern. There are even cults that are calling themselves the pattern watchers. Uh, Kabbalah is one of those patterns, as I've said in the last video, and then we addressed flipping the runes and the order of Set, which is another pattern in how to control the subconscious through projectionism, and how important it is magically to control and influence the subconsciousness, as I've said, and where human spirit is exploited through magical rituals to control the frequencies of the material realm, because that is literally how creation works. Everything happens from within the consciousness, the subconsciousness, the internal will, and perhaps some muscle, physical muscle and brawn to make things happen their way, that the way they want it to happen, which is telling you that they're losing power. They don't know how to harness psychokinetic energy, because psychokinetic energy, when intact, on a side note here, is flourishing uh, eternally. Always flourishes because it comes from your spirit. And if you're not in touch with your spirit through your heart, and within and into yours, internally with yourself through self love uh, and forgiveness and whatever else, you are unable to access your psychokinetic power, because your spirit is made up of psychokinetic energy to begin with. If you've done a lot of things that and you've lived outside of yourself, you tend to forget that you have a spirit. Some actually don't even have ones anymore. I don't think so. I think it's like if you don't use it, you lose it, that sort of thing. So, uh, like I've said, your bonus is if you are being paid for the particular work, because they also then, if they can't harness this themselves, they get people to do these things. They pay them to hold these ceremonies, to act it out for them. But while they have their front row politicians and actors all shined up, those are the middlemen that you get to see and hear about, that show and tell information that is leaked into this realm, is done so on a deliberate basis, unless you really know what the source of the information is about. So it is only leaked out accidentally, deliberately, if there is a chance that they are trying to get rid of their middlemen or their front row seat agents. Anyway, so there's a massive role playing in the geopolitical field with regard to that as well. So we'll be looking at the patterns of the wardrobes. I call the patterns the wardrobes. So inside of the trapezoid, remember that everything and every time it is being discussed on this channel, this is why this channel is so unique. It is literally being dismantled. It is clarified, revealed, and resolved. On another note, I need to also tell you this, that on the role or on the rules of spirit control or possession, any spirit, if coming from once a physical vessel, that means human relation, can be dominated or controlled if he or she is not able or has not been able to create boundaries within themselves. People that make themselves become the vessels for spirits to speak through. If you've got no boundaries, you are then also being you can also be used very easily. If you are locked into certain belief systems, you may be stuck in those belief systems as well. And if you work hard to help yourself get out of things that dominate you in your life, in your consciousness, in how you exist, um, you are able to then free yourself from being dominated or being subjected to, excuse me, their rituals. You cannot be commanded by them. You cannot be controlled by them. Doesn't matter what happens if you pass away or if you've lost the path to go straight to the original creative force, which is outside of this torus. Okay, but the only way to get there is to go through the doorway within, and the only way to do that is you have to actually uh, look at yourself with love. You have to look at yourself with forgiveness. You have to look at yourself with acceptance. You have to look at yourself with um, respect. And if you don't have respect for yourself, and then that means you won't have respect for others, then they will not have, then you will be in that stream of, oh, this one, you can just use this one. Let's just use this one. For those who are trying to attempt to dominate certain spirits that are supernatural, the domination does not happen. They get hurt, but they do not become dominated. So, supernatural spirit, that means it doesn't have a human origin. It means it cannot be dominated or manifested, like they believe they can manifest you, bullshit, or use its energy. It cannot be done. Every time a person who thinks he is able to dominate or compel or materialize or manifest or possess another spirit simply means that he dabbles in necromancy. That is the work that they use, which means those who use necromancy call up a spirit of the dead, a human spirit. No boundaries makes you become a freely useful idiot or vessel for the spirits to take you over. No man can manifest or dominate or compel any spirit which is not from human descent. That means some people who think that they worship a supernatural entity or an unholy lord or a Satan or a devil are just worshiping just another servitor or image of what they believe holds the image of Satan or a devil or a demon for them, especially since the human spirit is often called into vessels of belief systems to represent something. So remember that if members and participants of certain cults or organizations bombard you with electrical currents or pulses or high magical practices, which is what they've now been doing, is using cybermancy and cyber stalking and all of that crap, then remember it's not coming from supernatural beings, it's only coming from another human. And don't forget that they want you to feel unseen, weak, sad, tired. More so, they want your heart to be broken. If they can make it physically break, they would, because you irritate them. But they need to eat from you, so they can only maim you to make you ooze more of your psychokinetic energy so that they can feed from it. Most of these things are done through projection and illusion magic, hence the artificers. We will be looking at the reinstating of the feminine frequency and the masculine frequency by default, which is within every human being. Two very important principles within every living being, as I said, is that it is also often misunderstood as duality when it is not. That idea that masculine and femininity within means duality is incorrect. There is a it works with the middle path, which is the heart. Those who project and keep perpetuating the duality ideology are the ones that want to perpetuate the good cop, bad cop scenario at all times. Yes, no, blue, red, and so on. You can see a lot of it coming through during political agendas, during political movements, just as an example, or sport. So, like I said, wholeness is really the aspect that uh, bonds the masculine and the feminine principle within you through your heart, which lines up to your spirit, and your soul is your interface with this world. So you are then a whole being. This material is about restoring the original frequency between uh, in having masculine and feminine principles in balance. A lot of self love brings you into that frame of reference to understand who you actually are in terms of, are you able to create or receive creation or make something happen. So that's based on that aspect. The feminine principle in itself is the receiver of everything that goes on around you, which means it is the soul. The soul uh, is the interface between your spirit and this world. So you are able to see masculine, and your soul is able to collect information while your spirit is changing the information, and then it projects it out through your life. If you do it through self love, you energize that frequency inside of you. You become whole. You actually become stronger in who you are. And like I said, when people start to connect in that way, the more you go on that path, the more you're then able to collect or draw to you that little particle of your spirit that was taken away from you before you came in here, which is now used as a token to uh, do things with, because that can also happen through symbolism and shit like that. Let's say your bloodline was in a particular order, and you've grown up with that bloodline running through you. You are able to revoke it out of your existence. You don't have to believe what your great grandfather believed. You are yourself, your own whole self. This is where the path of the ancestral thing comes in very much as well. Are some ancestors actually, do they have a positive impact in your life, or do they not? That is up to you to decide and to go through that process. So the soul, as I've said, is the feminine principle. It is receiving information all the time, and it then feeds it back to the spirit, which is then the masculine and feminine principles in unity, that, or in wholeness, and then are able to think on what it is that you wish to do because of what you've just heard. So your ears could be feminine, your eyes could be feminine as well, your mouth could be masculine, and in that way is what I'm explaining it. It's got nothing to do with gender at all, but they would like for people to believe that there's a strong physical material aspect to that. Okay, so understanding masculine and feminine principles in the bigger picture, always remember that the presence, that to present masculine energy is to present information, to give information, the active force, while the feminine is the receptive principle, the passive receptive force. The artificers or script keepers, there you are masters of invention, used using ingenuity and magic, technology and shiny attention, catching rituals to unlock extraordinary capabilities in objects and people. But the payoff is, of course, to siphon as much energy from you as they're able to do. This is why they dazzle people. I swear their eyes look a bit different. Some of people with their eyes that look a little bit bulgy. That doesn't mean it's a person with thyroid issues, but when the eyes are very big, you must be careful. Okay, it's like the siren is trying to draw you in. Anyway, so they see magic as a complex system waiting to be decoded, and then they harness it into their spells and inventions. Artificers use a variety of tools to channel their arcane power. It's not like you didn't know what I'm talking about, right? To cast a spell, an artificer uses alchemy or whatever else materials to create elixirs, sigils, to inscribe a sigil of power or craft charms or project magic, which is based on feelings. I keep looking at a person and I keep wishing that person would just drop and fall to the ground. And you keep doing that every day, and it will definitely affect that person. That's what they do. So the magic of artificers are tied to their gadgets, tools, and materials. So we are touching a little bit on technology and the technological cults that there are lots of, a lot more than usual, because I mean, tech is the new best Ouija board, right? You just, yeah. So the Super Bowl in itself was a very clumsy um, example of how technology was used to dazzle, to draw energy from the stage, from everyone, for a particular ritual which they are busy planning for. And I will give it to you at the end of this material. So no matter how you look at it, it's always based on projectionism and lights and drama and stuff. Artificers use the torus and the trapezoid as a form of script keeping. I'll explain that to you now. It's not the trapezoid that is evil. Okay, you need to keep that in mind. Though some may think it's a concept of eyes always watching them, especially if you're going through a psychedelic trip, I suppose. You should look at it with less literal thoughts. Okay, this is why I keep saying study the way of metaphysical thinking, and you will be able to see beyond that. Okay, it is not a literal thing, but it is the space that is inside or inside a temple or a temple in which ideas and thoughts are implemented in, and those are done through holding sacred space. Okay, those that call it sacred space make space for inside of the trapezoid, uh, and we're not talking about one giant trapezoid. We're talking about a lot of trapezoid nested inside of the torus skin. Like I've said before, go to beyond Thunderdome and you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay. So a script is drafted up by way of images and ideas in order for it to take hold of the imagination of people. The ritual that was done uh, on the 11th of September was to draw as much energy from the actual breaking down of the pillars, which was there to generate as much energy and focus, including the ones that were trying to figure it out. So that's how it works. Uh, the space that was then created afterwards is a thing that is in water, which represents things done in memory of supposedly those that did not survive the ritual. So that is a very rudimentary example of how a ritual is done and how a space was created afterwards. The space was created before the time, and it was in two pillars, and the pillars had to go down. On the side, you would say that the image of man was pierced with a spear inside of him, which had then collapsed the frequency of those two pillars, masculine and feminine, and then the space that was held afterwards, the ceremonial space, is the portal to operate within the trapezoid. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I try to speak as much without flagging. So the trapezoid is also seen as a type of womb, is what you can look at it as well, or a type of vacuum, or a space, or a thing, or a place where people hold certain ceremonies. I'm gonna give it to you a little bit more simpler now. So the Ophites and the Gnostics believe that the womb is the space or the universe outside of whatever, which is absolutely not true, because the womb is really the trapezoid itself, the space that is held where the ceremony takes place. That is seen as that is what it actually means. It means that is the womb that you're looking into. So like I said, the last video about the Kabbalah was a dismantling of one such a device or pattern, like I said, where the information was being siphoned through those beliefs via the trapezoid, because it can fit inside of the trapezoid as well. Artificers know how to manipulate, or at least they think they can control the structure of the nested reality by way and via through the trapezoid. Hence, technology as being their next best toy. Okay, back in the day, they used something else. It's not even the trapezoid itself, but it's the power that the trapezoid holds in that space. The trapezoid is a nested reality with lots of codes, symbols, and rules and cults in it, like a dark type of void or a black mirror in which people can get lost in which you can be forever locked into a space of your own creations and never even know that, or others' creations to which you are subjected to. Those are called followers. Even the Egyptians had to literally build because they believed it had to be built into the material by building the pyramid, when in the fact at the bottom it's the other end of that pyramid which creates a trapezoid or a rhomboid in 3 dimensions, or 4 dimensions rather. So looking at a flawed architecture creates flawed frequencies, and how important it is based on the dynamics inside of the trapezoid within the torus model. Okay, so especially to the artificers or sorcerers who work hard in it every day. Artificers are also magicians or sorcerers needing the energy of the trapezoid in order to dominate energy. Always, 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 always. Please remember this: material gain and dominion. That's all it's about. Okay. They don't care about themselves because they don't need to worry about themselves. They die and they stay in that cult, and then they come back again. They don't have any worry or concern. So people need to stop questioning and wondering, why does the psychopath do what he does? Does he have no remorse? No, he doesn't, because it's not in him. He's killed that part inside of him. He doesn't need it. This image that I'm showing to you right now is the example, a very prime example, which I've used before, where the magical table for conjuring stuff up happens. Okay, it's not a physical thing, but some people do put it up. Those things are sometimes altars. Okay, a place where you alter your current reality with the trapezoid reality. Okay, that's what the word altar means in scripted as altar. Really, I think maybe I should have discussed this as under stupid. So within chaos magic, a servitor is a psychological complex created element deliberately created by the magician for a specific purpose to operate autonomously from the magician's consciousness. This pretty much explains why things are the way they are. This is why if you're psychic, or intuitive, you're unable to pick up exactly who it is that's targeting you, and they're always doing it from behind you, and you never can't really see the true nature of who they are unless you become stronger, and then once you see them, then that's it, you've seen them. I've seen lots of them, though, by the way. I actually know their faces quite well. Some of them even have families and kids. They do these things in their basement, and some in a room right next to the kids' room. It's quite bad, actually. So, on the side note, so big corporations, I can actually see your eyes when you focus on the information and what goes through your mind when you try to attack the frequency of self-love. Yeah. So big corporations or big corpses, you need to look at it in a different way now. Here's a metaphysical understanding of seeing corporations, okay? Build servitors. They build servitors or servers for the same purpose as like an egregore to do the same thing. To cut off the focus or the head of the bull, like I've said in the last video, or the vision of John the Baptist, like they did, and to place this head on a silver platter. In other words, a lunar ritual that was done to sever the head of a very prominent person or thing or agency so that they can control it on a plate in the moonlight. It's always about lunar magic, always doing it in the dark. AI integration technology is just another one of those things that have been created to fit. Uh, yeah, it's also being used quite a lot. More consciousness is focused into the collecting of the algorithmic patterns, the more self awareness is happening, even if it's sentient and rudimentary. That is what they're trying to do. And then you get the lazy ones that just want to incorporate the technology because then they don't have to pay another person for the job. Yeah, it works on predetermination. That's basically what it is. Predictive text messaging. I think that's part of it, and predetermination. I think that they're trying to create precogs, like in that movie with Tom Cruise. Yeah. Anyway, so it's always about the container of the vessel or the vessel. A big corporation could also be a big corpse, like a big body of people inside of it. The people working in that organization, some people like being the servants of big corps. Some people don't have a choice. Um, if you're there and you feel you don't have a choice, but you need to do it because you need to live, then be mindful that you keep focusing on your self love. I'm not saying stop working there, okay? That's not what I'm saying. So everyone has been in a situation like that where you are stuck and you have to get through it, and you will. Just remember that if you are becoming fully invested in something like that, and you give your life for it, then you have already pledged your spirit to that servitor. Yeah, unless you start loving yourself, then you'll start to draw back your energy and you'll actually automatically break that contract with and still work there. So yeah, that's how it works. In cults, it works the same way. Servants in temples, cult followers, the very same thing. If they can hold a space inside of that temple, then that is where they touch on the energy of the trapezoid. People who do Ouija board readings and seances and circles, I think they do the same thing without even being aware of it as well. So, according to chaos magicians themselves, they describe it so. Servitors are created by deliberately severing off portions of the psyche. They're calling it budding. I've never heard of it before. Budding means coming out, not, severing, because it really is a part that's being severed of the psyche and identifying it by means of giving it a name. This is my pal L. He'll do the thing and he'll look like a big white wolf. So he can protect me without me knowing it. so on and so forth. This is another way of looking at it as well. It also sounds to me like very much like MK Ultra, um, where the Order of the Trapezoid does exactly the same thing with the Kabbalah, where portions of the Kabbalah tree is segmented off into the consciousness in the body. So you live in a compartmentalized state all times, much like the victim of an MK Ultra who has alters to be a certain form, fractured consciousness, fractured mind. Okay, so like I said, it's like mind control programming all the time, over and over and over and over. Like a mind controlled people who undergo MK Ultra and their minds are broken and severed into many parts. It's the same thing. A servitor is just another word for an alter. So fragmentation and then compartmentalization is also what protects them. You can find only parts of a person when you sense them, and you can't see all of them. However, you can eventually, once you become much stronger in loving yourself, see them entirely for who they are and where they come from and even where they live. Okay, so on a side note, yeah. So understand that the state of the mental depravity within which operations are done inside of the womb in the trapezoid in order to have had to present false information for centuries, if not longer, because it works that way. So the belief in the boogeyman had to have a history and a mythology to it in order for the followers to take note of it, so that they could draw spirits in to make the boogeyman become alive again. I'm going to show you this diagram. I want you to look at it again of the torus and the trapezoid. In order for me to explain where this all is going in terms of the dynamics of the trapezoid, I must explain for you how the creative power works within the trapezoid and how it is meant to work by reviewing the force of the original creative energy. So now I'm going to be giving you a bit of a refresher insight on the original creative force and understanding what we're looking at. Like I said, FYI, the original creative force, or as I call it, Great Spirit, is outside of the torus, but it is continuously on, beaming energy or sending energy or energy flowing throughout the entire ether system, which is erroneously called space or the universe. Okay? But as you know, space is just a measurement for the energy in time within ether. The energy is made up of psychokinetic energy or spirit. Okay? Like the natural law of attraction and or correspondence. These laws are very, very powerful, very prominent. So energy projects into ether that comes into contact with it, becomes luminiferous ether, and luminiferous ether is still psychokinetic energy that penetrates into the skin of the torus. This energy, like the water spilling onto the mill, is a good example, lands into the pocket or trapezoids, which are perceived one-dimensionally as black and white or light and dark. Okay, that image. The skin of the torus, and I'll show you again, is made up of the interaction of electromagnetic ribbons folding over one another, in which the frequencies of these ribbons are electrical and magnetic in energy, explosive and implosive. These electromagnetic pockets are also dielectrical, charged, are filled with energy as the secondary form of energy indirectly from the original creative force. I've got a link here to explain dielectric. I'll just give you a short summary of it. In electromagnetism, a dielectric or dielectric medium is an electrical insulator that can be polarized by an applied electrical field. Okay, the rest is on the link for you to read. Yeah, the poles are very important to understand. Okay, that means that the trapezoid is masculine as well as feminine, light or dark, like I said. Okay, and it actually should be on the side. It shouldn't be upright like how I'm showing to you, but that's the best way as an example. Okay. Again, stop thinking literally though. Okay, stop thinking literally. You're looking at fields of energy. It's the best way that I can explain. So the trapezoids are receptive pockets of energy containing luminiferous ether. Uh, Nature receives the energy as undiluted by differentiation depending on what nature requires, harmony, balance, etc. Humans are also the receivers and or observers of this energy, and you can see it when you dream, or if you are deeply meditating, sometimes you will see weird geometrical types of shapes or sparks of lights or lines, and that means that you're seeing the energy. Okay. So energy that is fed into the trapezoids is determined by what is inside of you, because energy creates energy, like attracts like. That is the law of correspondence. So again, if you have certain belief systems inside of you pre-existing, this is what you will see in the field of the trapezoid. Belief systems and mythologies are signs and symbols to rule the realm. So is language. We just I wish I could speak another language with you that we could all understand that was not written by man. But anyway, that's on the side. Energy coming from the original creative force is either diluted or absolutely not. There is no dualism. It is whole or not. Okay. Whole or broken or not. The stream is not broken. The stream is steady pulsing, but the receptor of it can be broken or diminished or disturbed or even delusional. The more dense your beliefs are, the more diluted your energy will make the energy that you are receiving. Delusion happens in extreme cases, as I'm sure you know by now. Certain crafts or rituals are required in many cults and societies, or lower frequency practices during mental focus or meditations and or dream hacking through projections or astral travel into the trapezoid. While others who are polarized or fractured within their psyches will perceive this energy in a polarized or fractured manner. Those who are broken mentally or spiritually, as in feel nothing, loves nothing, and is completely cut off from everything and sees hurt everywhere, is a person who is hurt themselves and they're in denial of who they are. So I'm sure you know who they all are in your life. I'm sure you've seen these types too. These ones perceive the energy as extremely polarized. It's either right or wrong, black or white, and then fixates on one of those things, which becomes like a broken glass with light shining through it. They then perceive that as the brilliance of a diamond. Then they go for it and they don't stop. Think of those guys that bash their heads against the mirrors. That would be a good example. So if you are full of shit, or your heart is full of hatred, rage, or you feel nothing, then you will literally see things that are related to exactly that behavior, like I've explained. What is inside of you determines your life and your circumstances of your life. And we have discussed the moralistic aspect in the last before last deep stuff video on morals, on evil, on choices, on those things, and how the original creative force operates. It is essentially indifferent to your stuff. You are the one that's supposed to change your life. Okay. Those, if you are innocent, if you are too young to do that, you have those that are supposed to help you to change your life. And if you are completely lost and you don't have anybody else, then and you see this video, then keep watching and you'll get to help yourself eventually. There will be others that will help you eventually as well. So the closer you are in proximity to your heart, not the physical pump station, not the organ, but the feeling of love, self-love, self-actualization, who you are, the closer you are to your original self in proximity, your spirit, the closer and more profound your life changes, because you change your life path in that way, inside out. Literally, the closer you are able to peer beyond the constructed trappings and belief systems, the more you see many roots out of this realm. Also, let me just remind you there. And the closer you come into alignment with the original creative force as well. So the original creative force is all energy but corresponds through spirit. Thus, law of correspondence requires the connection of the spirit from within you to communicate with it. If you are an unsavory fellow, then the energy that lands into you via the luminiferous ether will become absorbed by you, and you will become even more unsavory and inverted in your existence. Like I said, there is absolutely zero morality that comes into this. This is discussed in the Talismanic Lunatic video about choices and in the paper dolls as well. Those are the last videos you can look at for this part. So if you operate in love, love becomes the higher frequency for you through love, through self-love and care. The Taurus is only active because of the frequency of energy coming from via the original creative force, while what goes into the Taurus is absorbed and made up by choices. Okay. So was the Taurus created by the original creative force? Intentionally, a field was created to hold the realm or world into its own orbit, or you would be floating off, I suppose. Considering it as a type of field for what it was meant to be before it became used for other purposes. And obviously, don't forget choices that also change things and change the life path and greed and so on. So did you build the house, as an example? Did you build your house that you've now sold to be an evil house? Is the house evil, or are the people inside of the house evil? You need to just see it that way. You built the house for a particular purpose, and the house with the people inside infected the house. They didn't paint the walls, they didn't take care of the house. So the house then becomes dilapidated. That's as simple as that logical explanation. So the references of it can also be seen as the Van Allen belt, okay, if you really need to have something to look at, to focus at. So remember, like I've said to you, that the Taurus is just a field, okay, a field for the model of what we're discussing. And the images that are shown of the Van Allen belt is very badly done. Okay, it's very badly done. I think you should know by now. So Taurus is also perceived as the giant wheel of fortune or framework in which they can do their things in. That's the biggest thing that they've always wanted, is to control the wheel. You know, most movies show there's a wheel and they can sit on the wheel, or they can control the wheel, or the wheel gets broken. There's that. They keep perpetuating those beliefs. Okay, so this video that I'm showing you now is a video of a water mill, and I want you to see how the water flows, and that is basically the energy. This is just an example. It flows into the mill and makes it move and turns and spins while the water lands inside of the mill. It's little pockets, and some are the ones that the water lands on is first, second, third, and so it goes through. So you'll be able to understand what I'm trying to explain, and how the trapezoid, which are the pockets, operate in the bigger picture, which is the wheel, which is the Taurus. Okay, that's how energy works, as best as I can example. Okay, so most greedy sorcerers, or overall, I'll just call them descriptive word artificers, see it as the prize to control the ring. Means you can control the realm. Countless have stared into this energy or tried to create new things, but new languages, with the expectations that something supernatural will come to them and turn them into kings and gods and goddesses and crap like that. Uh, and with it accommodating always riches, right? The genie in the lamp. You can never access the original creative force in that way. I don't think they ever care to do that. I think they really have made themselves become complacent to that aspect. But you know, there is such a thing as judgment, right? And there are always, these things always happen in the end. Their ends. So you always find those who seem to seek your constant validation for what they do. They keep wanting you to see what they're doing. They keep telling you, there's a flying pig, you know, and you keep following and trundling along. Eventually, you are part of their projection as well. So it's always done from within because of the frequency and the resonancy of where you are within yourself that can actually determine the proximity for you to connect to and within the original creative force, if you choose that. Beyond all levels or degraded or diluted frequencies, you can choose the degree of your frequency as well by your behavior. So the frequencies of which the trapezoid is consisting of is not only dielectric but also eidetic, which means it's got memory. When you chop off a tree and you still see the auric field of that tree, that means the system is holding the eidetic image of the tree that was there before. So the same thing happens when people pass away and you see their spirit activity. There was an eidetic image of that spirit present at the time when they passed away. You will see them in that one place only. That doesn't mean that it's where they are. Some people who've lived with the focus of the physical world as their main thing will be trapped in that image of the eidetic place where they are, where they're stuck in. Okay. Where others will just not be there. Okay, so yeah, choices there. Creation operates on much of the eidetic energy. It operates with images in the head via images of beliefs, image of people, you name it, all becomes programmed with ideas. Do not see this as an artificial thing, but as a sentient frequency, because it's made up of intelligence, of people and things that are alive, and which is not, some that are not, and it's by large, intelligent, and organic. So see it as a giant type of energetic soul frequency, receptive of energy coming directly into it by way of luminiferous ether and then from the original creative force out again. So the first image when the witch stared into the mirror, and this is a good example to show you how the artificers use the power of the magic in the space that is held in the trapezoid, where the witch is calling out to the mirror. This is a Snow White Disney thing. On purpose, I've picked it for that. Where she is saying these magical words. I don't know if I'm actually be able to. Anyway, saying these magical words, summoning it from the trapezoid by initiating. Now, remember what I said to you initially, that people who have passed away, their spirits become slaves to those who are trying to use their energy to do what they wish to do. Notice that she says slave or servant of the spirit world. Slave in the magic mirror, come from the farther space. Through wind and darkness I summon thee, speak, let me know thy face. End quote. Artificers and or observers who can gaze into the trapezoid or that theta state in which perceptive images or ideas or rituals are done in through certain things, medicines, and so on, projects it into and gets it into themselves, projects into that space and calls it back into themselves. Whatever they want, they can call it out of there. So this image of a ritual that was performed with intentions becomes the image projected into the realm and either affects people or it does not. Remember, choices. So if they wish to have some sort of alien apocalypse to happen, they'll keep focusing on the alien apocalypse to happen. And if it doesn't come through, there's not enough psychokinetic energy to energize it. If it does come through, then there's enough psychokinetic energy that they've stolen from other people. But then it doesn't actually happen the way that they wish to have it happen, because then they have to put a lot of emphasis into actually building these things underground so that they can float around and become an alien apocalypse. It doesn't magically happen if you don't do it in the right way. It happens to get ideas, and you can make it happen by building it here in this in the material realm. But if you were a person that did things in a different way, uh, and you were connected to your heart energy, would you call an alien apocalypse to happen? If you did, then it would still not happen because it goes against the actual moral existence of that which is life within the nature, within the material realm. So they force these things to happen mechanically to happen. Okay, like the ritual of the Super Bowl is a good example. There's so many of these examples. They let people make it happen. Okay, they let you focus on the image they keep showing you in movies so that it can actually happen. So whatever is inside of you, or if you connect into the trapezoid through belief systems of certain ideologies, it solidifies that which you wish to project into this realm. Um, it's also a form of dilution of energy that is perceived by the audience, diluted energy. However, if you are already working on yourself and you have been focused intently in self-love, this breaks down the delusion of energy that is around you or that they are projecting to you. This is why they hate this work. This is why they hate people who love themselves, because you break their shit down just by loving yourself. So what do you get now are desperate witches, like I said, and voyeuristic people with intent to actually harm you in some very weird way, or like they've done with certain people that have been presenting very positive information and good information in the past, and then they just remove them out of the equation because I mean that person's a problem, right? It's messing up my cadenzas. So those, yeah. So remember, love is the highest form of energy, so you tap into it directly, connecting with the original creative force. This energy overrides the pre-existing polluted images that they pump all over the place, and inside of the trapezoid it even breaks down the hold of the trapezoid over you. You didn't know that. Eventually you become, you are beyond it. You're able to observe it, and you are beyond being affected by it and infected by it. Okay, so while the trapezoid and or torus model in a continuation as it is structured, you will always get someone who will try something in order for the system to tip over. There's always those, and I think that those are the Gnostics, psychos. It's always based on greed in some form. They can get what they want if they can actually break that thing down. Then they sit there gleefully and watch you to try and get your energy. So it's not even about the object itself. They think that because you are a person that enjoys writing with this pen, if they can break the pen, that means they'll break you. Okay, that's how they reason, all right? You're not the sum of the pen. Now we're going to be looking at some symbols here. So why the torus and or torus model is a continuation, like I said. The staff and the serpent wisdom symbolism, as I've said before, and staff and serpent symbolism, and that is even through the torus is like an eternal Ouroboros, or giant snake eating its own tail. It's still coiled around the pole or staff in the form of a caduceus or a symbol for healing, as or. Okay? Because this is how they mess with you. Make you think whatever they want you to see, okay? In the following coming now, I'll be showing you the parts of what they do. Okay? Mercury is the Roman god that is left a symbol for those who have eyes to see, of course, like I said, yeah. Why is the snake coiled around the staff in this image and the snake coiled around that and the staff around that image? You're looking at two different entities or two different celestials or examples of celestials that were used. Asclepius was the actual healer. Asclepius, an ancient Greek physician, was deified as the god of medicine. was traditionally depicted as a bearded man wearing a robe that leaves his chest uncovered and holding a staff with his sacred single serpent coiled around it, symbolizing renewal of youth as the serpent casts off its skin. The single serpent staff is also on a Sumerian vase in 2000 BC. 2000 BC, okay, representing the healing god, also called Ningishita, the prototype of the Greek Asclepius. So it's the same symbol. It's being used again. However, there's more practical descriptions of it. So Mercury, Roman god, stolen mostly. All Roman gods are stolen from the Greek gods, by the way, just so you know, and I'll explain that later. Keep that in mind. So Roman Mercury, messenger of the gods, inventor of magical incantations, conductor of the dead, and protector of the merchants and thieves. Okay. And yet his symbol is used for medicine. So what does it tell you about the medical, about the healers? One snake or two, I suppose. So do you want to heal yourself, or will you get yourself healed through magic? And if you know, pass out of the process, then it means then I can just use your spirit afterwards. So you must think on this one. Then there's another one here called Simon Magus. This is a very interesting picture. Simon the sorcerer was Simon the magician. Since you can see the staff as a wand for magic as well, you have to look at that. He was a Gnostic. Some say he was a religious figure, one of the founders of Gnosticism. And this image shows the Basilica of Saint Cernan. Looks like he's actually sitting on a toilet. So yeah. Then there's another one, and the basilica is a word for serpent. Just keep that in mind. So Moses, another one with the stick and a snake. The founder of Mosaic laws, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, Torah, which means law and was translated into Greek as nomos or law, laws of the 5 senses. That's what the 5 books are. Laws of the 5 senses: eyes that see, ears that hear, noses that smell, mouths that taste and feel, touch. So basically what happened was Moses threw the staff or the Torah down on the ground. I would say that you could look at that in a few ways. When you throw the Torah down onto the ground, it means you lay down the law. You can do that. Or when you throw the stick down, you can also put it down onto the ground, and out of it came the serpent. The stick turned into a serpent. The staff turned into a serpent, which means, yeah, he laid down the law as the foundation, but it became a snake. Okay, and went for the Egyptian that he was doing it for, as a show. You see. This is how you should be looking at these things. This is what I'm saying to you. What metaphysical thinking is about. It's really seeing all of those type of ways of thinking. So the staff is the Torah, the rod of iron, or iron is the law. Putting it down or throwing it down onto the ground means doing it fast, and putting it on down the ground as a foundation, but it turns into a snake, which means it can be, according to how they would see it, as transformative, or it can be weaponized. Okay, where a snake can actually hurt you if you're in its way, if you're attacking it. Although that's not really the nature of a snake. They tend to run away or get away from you before you can actually get to them. That's actually how they are. I think that the snake is the Kabbalah, because I think that they've already then predetermined that, or saw that the Kabbalah, once they've placed down the law, the Orthodox Judaism laws, that it could become corrupted, which is how the Kabbalah came about. So a snake on the ground means it's the representation of the basement, also of the base chakra, earthly rootedness, or 5 sensory delights rooted in the base chakra. The snake around the pole is a very, very important symbol, and you'll see what I mean by that. It has many aspects to it. Okay. The snake skin is also a symbol for the torus skin in which the trapezoids are in, which looks like the skin of a snake wrapped around the staff or pole, which is wrapped around the material realm where laws are made. Okay, from the top to the bottom, steeping into the underworld, which is the north or the south, the top of the and the bottom. Okay, North Pole, South Pole. Yeah, see what I'm saying? It's not actually a dragon. Those that think that it's related to the dragon by the Ophite diagrams representing the foundation as a dragon, it is essentially not. It's a the wrong rendition. It really is the serpent, more so, or the Leviathan, because it comes from out of the waters, which is the founding waters, which is the base. Okay, it is out of which Venus came out as well, out of the waters. Beauty and all of these things are all related to Kabbalah and Gnosticism. I did mention to you in a previous video of mine, which I'm going to remind you again to go look at, is called the I'm talking about the Leviathan there, so that you're able to understand. Um, the Josephic Messiah, Leviathan, Metatron, and the Sacred Serpent video link is available. Book review. In my own words, I'm quoting here: the secret doctrine of the Gaon of Vilna introduces the reader to the virtually unknown Kabbalah school of the Gaon of Vilna. This cosmology incorporates an ancient prophecy which they made up, mandating a messianic interference between Kabbalah and science. I said interference. The reader is taken on an exploration of the most challenging secrets of secrets to be found from amongst the entire corpus of the Kabbalistic teachings of the Jewish sages. The secret mission of Mashiach ben Joseph, the Josephic Messiah, and the twin Messiahs, the cosmic drama of the sacred serpent and its role in accelerating technology, the feast of Leviathan and its higher dimensional flesh, and Metatron, that's the pyramid on your head, Prince of the Presence, the ultimate key to unlocking the Gaon's Kabbalah system, specifically the doctrines of Kol HaTor, and for the matter, the entire Torah and the cosmos. End quote. So they think. But now you understand that the serpent is essentially it's the Leviathan serpent and not the dragon. The dragon, I think, comes from somewhere else because it is from the sky. The snake is just another symbol for the Ouroboros, or the rendition of the Torah wrapped around the Torah, or the Torah, the trapezoid, the message, the torus, etc., 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 the pillar, you name it. The trapezoid is seen or perceived as scales of the snake. Now, just because I'm telling you that these are the renditions that have been seen about the torus model itself, does not mean that they've invented it. It means that it was already there and they've made it fit the way that they wish to have it fit. So understand that very clearly. This because I'm talking about the torus model and I'm speaking about how it works and the pockets and the trapezoids, that it was not created by them, because they cannot create. They can only alter, copy, and paste and steal. So in light of all of this that I've explained to you, the information based on the rest of the dynamics of the torus and how bad things were made in order for the astrologers. Let me say this: not every astrologer that is practicing astrology is aware of it, or that they've even duped themselves by occult. I'm talking about the occult astrologers, the ones that are the artificers. So okay, so if the shoe does not fit you, do not put it on. Don't force it. Don't be a ballerina. So the pattern watchers to switch astrological elements over and over around the wheel, because that's what they're doing, is to control domain, dominion, and age. Remember that. The more they can swipe, they can switch and portray things through mythology and images of what things should have been, the more they're able to control and dominate that age by way of magical thinking and projection for you, the pictures for you to see. So always remember that it's for dominion and that the powers to hold over it is always there. Information on the Torus model is based on deep stuff beyond Thunderdome, like I've said before, relating it to the metaphysical aspect on how architecture was observed and interfered with by using it for images projecting to people. Okay, so keep in mind, try not to think in literal manner, like I keep saying, because the subjects are always based on metaphysical constructed viewing, understanding it through a metaphysical manner. Taurus worshippers are wearers of the diadems. Yeah, I'm bringing diadem in because it's a very important word to keep mindful of, because that is an image that is being used in order to control the image. Or rings, still blindly following their own perceived godlike productions, which they always do ad nauseum, and beliefs and urges, much like those who believe themselves to be the demiurges of their own demises, which is what it really is, or the Cthulhu's who stare back at them and they run away from them from these things. Those guys are afraid of everything. Okay, they are shit scared. Artificers requires that's why their monsters are so extreme. Art and the actions that they do. Artificers require vessels in order to put spirits into. They can also trap ancestral spirits. Any spirit that has a human descent can be put into a vessel or trapped into a jar. Okay? If, like I said to you, and I'm saying this again, if that person was subjected to stuff. What about the people that are innocent? Well, they're not trapped anymore because we've broken the Solomon's ring and we've broken everything else. So they should be free roamingly now. If you don't know by now that the realm and all of its material events and functions are based on controlling from within the realm via the Taurus ring seats in the empires, which is what they are, where they are. Once it was the Orion Empire, the Orion belt of control, then the Roman Empire from there on, and so many other empires after that. To be more specific, these ring seats are inside of the trapezoids or nests or diamond shaped. Like I said, the Orion belt is a very good snapshot of it as well. Within the material realm, the empire. If you don't know why I'm saying empire, I would say go to the other playlists and you'll find the information there as well. Meta history, I think. So think of the trapezoid also as an energetic station on a train track, where the polarities are within can be switched, like electrical wires that were crossed can arc energy, the black or the white, where the idea of archons come from. Cons of light, like I've said it all the time, and I'll say it again. Archons are cons of angles of light with human properties, really. Think logically. Or as it said, ring seats for the cubicles with cubicles. You can look at it that way too. Some elites, some malevolent elites, because that's what they are, most of them, and those that wish to be them, are able to influence the social appearance of certain things with a lot of money, of course, so that it becomes apparent to become something that they wish to have. The Egyptians, like I said, were also extremely industrious in terms of how they saw the trapezoid, where they were industriously building the pyramids. No, it was not built by anything else other than absolute strong focus on the trapezoid itself with the help of building it the way that it was meant to be built, which was just only the surface that they could see of the trapezoid, whereas the bottom part of the trapezoid or the diamond is dark or unseen. It is black because it is unseen, not it is an alchemical term. You have to look at it that way. So the age-old belief of mythologies giving the point by point and stupidity, of course, and totally off the market corrupt, copying over and over the same shit, can be seen in many of these mythologies that I will be presenting to you, of course. And I'm just very sorry for the human race to have gone through that stupidity. Doesn't bode well. Anyway, the following part relates to the constructed mythological beliefs of diadems or diagrams and the power it holds as a type of servitor and sigil. So what is a diadem? Here is the link from Wikipedia. Quote, the word derives from the Greek diadema, which means band or fillet, from diadeo, which means I bind, round, or I fastened. The term originally referred to the embroidered white silk ribbon ending in a knot and two fringed strips often draped over the shoulder that surrounds the head of the king, which denotes his authority, of course. Such ribbons were also used to crown victorious athletes in important sports games and in antiquity. It was later applied to a metal crown, generally in a circular or fillet shape. You know, when you want to control something, then you put a ring on it, not so. I think Beyonce was right there. I hate that song though. Uh, anyway, a diadem is also a jeweled ornament in the shape of a half crown, worn by women and placed over the foreheads, covering the third eye, of course, in the sense also called a tiara. In some societies, it may be a wreath worn around the head. The ancient Persians wore a high and erect royal tiara encircled with a diadem. Hera, queen of the Greek gods, wore a golden crown called a diadem. That's where it's coming from. Diadem, remember now, is the same as the snake around the pole. Okay? It curls around. It's the same as the Ouroboros. It's a torus. It's a diadem. Okay? You see where I'm going with this? A diadem is also, yeah, like I said, the zodiac is a diadem as well that forms a strip overlapping or crowning the material realm, forming the system overlay, which we now know is broken. In the last video, Bliksem and Lightning. I would advise you to look there. The Priest King statue made by the Indus Valley civilization. I just love the way that they just make themselves priests and kings. I mean, just one guy. I mean, it's a Power Ranger with a headband on his head. By extension, diadem can be used generally for an emblem of regal power or dignity. The Roman emperor's head regalia worn by extension, diadem can be used generally for an emblem of regal power or dignity. The Roman emperor's head regalia worn from the time of Diocletian onwards is described as a diadem in the original sources. So it was this object that the Federatus, I think that's how you say it. Looks like, yeah, Federatus, General Odoacer returned to Emperor Zeno, the emperor of the Eastern Roman Empire, after his expulsion of the usurper Romulus Augustus from Rome in 475 AD. This is interesting because the word foederatus or foederati or singular foederatus means they were people and cities bound by treaties, bonded cities, bonded companies, known as feudus with Rome. And foederati is like the league agreement from Latin, which means allied, just another contract to bind you. Okay, keep that in mind. By now, you should start to realize that the staff, which Moses used and the snake coiled around it, forms precisely the same symbol as the diadem for the Federati, who were military units of free barbarians who allied with the Roman army. They were barbarian merchants who served as political and economic mediators between the Roman and barbarian populations. Sounds like the mafia. Okay. So understand that the realm as it stands now that you understand it in that way, is all about convoluted things that are happening right in front of your eyes, keep dazzling you with ideas and thoughts and things, trying to keep you bounded in the diadems of control. So too can the concept of the meaning of the image of its properties of the diadem be slotted into the Kabbalistic Sephiroth diagram and then lined up with a reconstructed diagram of the Ophites. Ophites are a Kabbalistic sect mixed with Gnostics. In short, I'll cite from an article, Ophites, written by a man called Thomas Rasimus, who very succinctly described it extremely well, so much so that I had to quote what he's saying. He says, early church gave the name Ophites or Ophians from the Greek ophis, snake, to which is actually Egyptian, apophis, comes from there, to a group that supposedly worshipped the serpent and advocated a mythology that reinterpreted the events of Christian biblical texts of Genesis. Because let's just start from the front by assigning a positive role to the serpent and a demonic character to the creator. Just to switch it over. Meanwhile, anyway, I'll explain what it means. It's not, yeah. Uh, on the origin of the world, hypostasis of the archons, and the apocryphon of John, arcs of light used and assigned to certain things, thingies that make me feel that I must be subjected to, and a guy called John that I remembered somewhere along the line. On the other hand, Celsus, philosopher and Origen, knew and described a diagram, a map of the universe with ritual instructions that accompanied, anointed, administered either at one's initiation or deathbed. That's how bad that is, creating a contract before you die? Yes. A central feature of the instruction was a set of passwords one had to learn and deliver at heavenly gates, guarded by seven theriomorphic archons, which were lights, which he called Yaldabaoth, Yao Sabaoth, Adonaios, Astaphaios, Eloios, and Horaios. Okay, I won't be saying that again. These are in reality the seven archangels led by Michael, who is actually, did you know, Yaldabaoth in their works, of course, and then, of course, also in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. So we'll just leave it there. Who has here become a demonized caricature of Yahweh, by the way. And the word Yahweh is really A-E-I-O-U, Yahweh. It is a sound for power. That's what they could hear. So Origen later specified that the users of the diagram are heretically Ophians, both from 180 CE, but appears in heresiological literature a generation later, accompanied by new claims of snake worship, of course. Some of the Nag Hammadi texts, hypostases of the archons and the apocryphon of John, not all of the texts obviously from John, because I think maybe he wrote his own stuff too, and others crapped all over his stuff and added their own stuff in it. Ophite sources are traditionally included in the Sethian Gnostic corpus as an influential theory of Sethian Gnosticism only reveals an incomplete picture of the evidence in describes and consequently needs to be complemented by the so-called Ophite material, resulting in a wider classical Gnostic corpus. The earliest Ophite form of classical Gnosticism did not yet contain speculations about Seth, but focused on the creation and paradise stories of Genesis, specifically on the serpent's role as an unwitting medium of revelation. Okay, so what this all means is that Ophites or snake worshippers of the Leviathan, on the meaning of the Leviathan, sea monster, sea serpent, sometimes regarding as form of Satan, but late Latin Leviathan from Hebrew Leviathan, a serpent, huge sea animal, unknown origin, perhaps from roots Lua, Lua, yeah. To wind, turn, twists, twisty. Anyway, to bend or twist from the Arabic as well. Described in John apparently as a crocodile in Isa, and it's called a piercing and a crooked serpent, and it's mentioned definitely as food. Okay, so the C, so from the link etymology online, to bend or twist also relates to the meaning of the name Yaldabaoth, which means to gird, girth, or means to grid, girth, or zone off something, to cordon off, or to have a girdle or girth around a woman's womb. Okay, that's another word, that's another meaning for it, which is where the Taurus is also basically something to look into. So to grid or girth is a celestial belt or girdle worn by women on the hips, which tells you that the energetic frequency that is adding to the fuel for yeah. Anyway, the more, that's basically it. So it operates not only holds spirits from the diseased or the deceased, sorry, as we have spoken about before, trapped in the trapezoid. So if Yaldabaoth is also meaning the word grid or girth, which they've removed, luckily I've saved this a long time ago, celestial, which also means a celestial belt worn by a woman on the hips, which tells you that the energetic frequency that is adding to the fuel for the misunderstanding of what they're seeing is interpreted over and over, but that they do have the audacity to actually trap spirits in the trapezoids. But also the feminine frequency, which is the spirit, or which is the soul frequency of the Sophianic entity, formerly also was known as Rhea back in the day, but is actually does not have a name. Was also formerly then called kybele, which was hooked into the girdle wearing of the Yaldabaoth around her hips. You know, the whole thing where they say childbearing hips, that's part of that aspect as well. So it tells you that the association with what they see and what they think they know or what they understand is completely off the wall, missed completely. Anyway, so the girdle or girth is also related to women specifically, which is emphasized as the ability to carry a child and to create furthermore, or to carry in her womb the association with the understanding that they have of the realm. So within the Taurus as the Saturnian symbol. Okay. So that, because of the mixing up of David Icke's bullshit, and I'm going to say it now, it really means that the solar deity Kronos, in proximity to the realm itself, was perhaps in alignment all along with the proximity of the outer circle in the system overlay, as you will see in this image itself. So step away from the literal thinker parade. Okay. So on Artificers, the involvement with diadems is very important to them because, I mean, they love the rings, all right, are tied and bound into and or have remnants of Sethian Gnosticism mixed in with it. So which is, as you know, third son of Adam and ancestor of all of the surviving human races via Noah, that bloodline, or the Noahites. Literally, Seth was appointed, or set as an appointed, if he even existed as a man, as a person. From Hebrew Sheth, from Shith, to put or to set, tied up into the Gnostic beliefs. I don't, the Gnostic sect or Sethians, material from the 1765, and believed Christ was a reappearance of Seth, whom they venerated as the first spiritual man. Remember now, this is how they see. He didn't exist. Okay, it was a protocol or a process that was made into a man, a physical form, an image of a man. So it was also set for from within the Egyptian story of Horus the eagle, and Seth, the snake, which is their sky and earth mythos as well. So the relationship between Horus and Set was that they were actually supposedly brothers. So in some spell work from their texts, Horus is the son, is perceived as the son of the Osiris and nephew of Set, and the murder of Osiris is the major impetus for the conflict, so that it can create duality. Okay, good cop, bad cop, always. The other traditions depict Horus and Set as brothers. Set became jealous of his brother and sought to usurp his throne. He eventually killed Osiris and dismembered him, spreading parts of his corpse around Egypt. Isis was, with the help of Nephthys, sought to collect the parts of her husband's corpse while Set became king, which is another backstory for Mithras and Cybele. Okay, much on that a little bit later, so you understand the mixing up of crap. So in Sethianism, also something important to look at too. The Ophites, Canaanites, and Sethians are pre-Christian Jewish sects. However, from the Wikipedia, since Sethians identified Seth with Christ, that means they've just assigned to it that that was the second uh, logos of the great Seth. In other words, a, let's say, third version of diluted energy from the luminiferous ether. Okay, Philisters believed that the Sethians, who is a Philister, I think, was a researcher, believes that the Sethians had pre-Christian origins other than the syncretic absorption of Jewish and Greek pre-Christian sources. Okay, so everyone was after this euro. The Sethian cosmogony myth gives a prologue to Genesis and the rest of the Pentateuch, I don't know how you spell it, the five books of the Bible, presenting a radical reinterpretation of the Orthodox Jewish conception of creation and the divine relationship to reality. Fancy that. Anyway, so somewhere in this, I'm going to give you certain statements, and then I will give you the correct statements of what it should be. So, flawed statement was that they say, from the unknown God emanate aeons, a series of paired females and male beings. The first of these is Barbello, who is a co-actor in the emanations that follow. Dot dot dot. Close quotes. The aeons that result. Okay, so yeah. So they say the aeons that result as representative of the various attributes of God, which are indiscernible when they are not abstract from their origin. God and the aeons comprise the sum of total of the spiritual universe known as the pleroma. End quote. Here is the corrected statement, okay? What it actually means. It means pleroma, or the idea of it, resides within the system overlay and the roots into the trapezoid. Okay, that's basically all it is, okay? Then the original creative force is not unknown unless you live beyond yourself, okay? If you don't know who you are, then you do not know who the original creative force is, okay? The original creative force is known by ways of actions of love through the spirit only. It is, if you don't know who you are, then the original creative force is unknown to you. This next one, where they mention Barbello as a co-actor, is exactly what it is. A co-actor is the second image created via the first idea within the trapezoid. So in other words, looking into the space, the circle, the holy space, those circle meditations, brains, and then focusing. Ah, there's a light there. Oh no, there's a smaller. That is how it happened. Okay. So remember, anything inside of your you know, anything and everything that's inside of you in your wildest dreams, whatever you think it was, mostly men who thought those things up because they saw it all as female. I think that's a Freudian thing there, perhaps, or a Carl Jung thing. Who knows? Into the system, is projected into the system, and then they put that down on paper, and then that becomes their manifested version of what they already want you to believe in. Then they create cults and religions around that, and people just follow it through, and then they become psyched up to see that shit. Okay, that's programmed belief systems. The pleroma is not the right word. I need to explain that to you. It should have been called ether. Um, Inside of you, who observes and tries to comprehend itself within the belief of association with the original creative force, is what you experience once you experience who you are. And so, using the information, which the next quote is then the next one part of this thing says, they say, quote, using this stolen power, Yaldabaoth creates a material world in an imitation of the divine pleroma. To complete this task, he spawns a group of entities known collectively as archons, petty rulers, and craftsmen of the physical world. I can't read my own writing. Like him, they are commonly depicted as zoomorphic, having the heads of animals. So, this is what it actually means, and let me correct it there. The grid across the system overlay is filled with mirror images of the celestial realm. The zodiac is the diadem from which is the home for Saturn to roam within the outer ring in the system overlay, like I've shown you that picture of Aristotle. Yaldabaoth is Michael, this arc light Michael, that's been called Michael. It's also an element for a demon or a spirit that exists within the lesser keys of Solomon. Okay, Michael is also associated with being Metatron. The zodiac, also the ribbon of time. Okay, at this point, the events of the Sethians' narratives begin to cohere with the events of Genesis, with the demiurge and his archontic cohorts fulfilling the role of the creator, which is the weirdo that thought this all up while he was having his psychotropic medicines. As in Genesis, the demiurge declares himself to be the only god, and that's none exists superior to him. However, the audience's knowledge of what has gone before casts the statement and the nature of the creator itself in radically different light, end quote. So, different lights for different strokes for different folks. That's all I would call it that. Okay, so the demiurge created man. Now the demiurge creates the man, okay? It's another part inside of their works, okay? And during this process, unwittingly transferring the portion of power stolen from Sophia into the first physical human body. So necromancy, right? He then creates Eve from Adam's rib in an attempt to isolate and regain the power he has lost. This was the demiurge. Then, by way of this, he attempts to rape Eve, who now contains Sophia's divine powers. Several texts depict him as failing when Sophia's spirit transplants herself suddenly into a tree. Okay. So now let's assume no one has any clue of the entire process, and that whatever they wrote from the Kabbalistic Gnostic view on Adam was actually Adam Katman, which was based on building a religion to create and deify beliefs placed inside of their doctrines. Okay, because that's exactly what it means. So I'll explain it to you now in that light again so that you understand. The demiurge is based on their egoic urges, which presented to them actions, which presented physical form, Adam, okay? Adam, the first man. And during this process, it said, unwittingly transferred the portion of power stolen from Sophia. In other words, while they were sitting in circle, someone was writing everything down of what this one guy saw in a vision, and he jotted it all down, and then he added his own little parts to it. And he thought, maybe it should actually be this. When the guy saw that bright white light while he took his mushroom, he wrote there, and he saw the light actually transplanting itself into the tree, which is the tree of Kabbalah, or the diagram of the Sephiroth, which compartmentalizes you into 10 bits of who you are. So it's 10 bits per second. Do you see what I'm saying? They also call this Adam as Adam Kadmon, and Eve was created from the rib of Adam. The tree of knowledge is a Sephirotic diagram. So the Gnosticism is just another version of Kabbalah, yet again, over and over. And didn't they know that in every society, cults or organizations had servants to worship these cults and keep perpetuating the followed belief system that keeps going over and over and over. Trapping spirit people who have lived in those systems, trapping their spirits in that system so that it keeps perpetuating that force of their projected ideas. Because that's all they can do. They can't do anything else other than to copy, steal, spin, and rework it. That's all they do all the time. I mean, you can see it today. On what Sophia was, as it didn't exist as a feminine being. It wasn't some feminine entity that floated down from the sky. It was a distinct, explained frequency of their own soul sense that they felt while they were on those psychotropic space, sacred space, where they were holding their ideas in place. While they also, remember, somewhere along the line, they were like very involved and invested in Judaic orthodoxy because their parents really rammed the Torah down their throats, and they were so upset, and that they were just like, no, I'm just going to just rewrite the whole thing the way I want to write it, and then that's how it should be. I'm treated like a snake in my own house. The snake was actually, scratch out, a good one. Ein Sof, used in Kabbalah as God, as they refer it to be, and you'll see in some of these diagrams which they perpetuate this bullshit. Kabbalah had simply become the framework for the entity to exist within. Another, for these people that have passed away, their spirits to be trapped inside of those frameworks, like a cage for people to be in. And then they continuously practice it. Okay. Much like the Buddhists who have all of these worlds, and it's just like forever worlds. In many versions of certain worlds, there's forever worlds. You can never come out of it. You're always inside of these worlds. It also does not mean the feminine side of God. Okay. Don't even go there, because the original creative force in itself does not require a frequency to qualify itself as this or that. It is all things. Okay. And it is indifferent to where you want to place a line or a circle around it to make it contained, while they sacrifice people over and over and over, placing their spirit frequency inside of those belief systems of their doctrines. So understand how I'm explaining it to you in a metaphysical perspective. It's a lot of information here, but I'm trying to explain the process of how they mix up their medicines and how very badly they make it project into this realm for people to believe in. Okay, Sophia supposedly also created the Yaldabaoth without taking responsibility, without consciousness, being aware when you think about something and having absolutely no responsibility for what the after effects would be when you say certain things to people, when you demonstrate certain things to people and you think nothing of it. That is what it means to have no foresight, to have no forethought in terms of what you think and what you do afterwards. So much so that it's repetitively the same information for people to fall into, because people are generally lazy. They don't want to work on themselves internally at all. It's too much hard work. And I don't like myself, so I don't need to see why I need to love myself. Yeah, I'll find it somewhere else. Wow. Okay, so therefore the idea of Sophia is a personalized personification of a man's ideal thought. That means a human's ideal thought of what God should be in feminine form, as a pristine thing that floats from the sky and has virginal features. Okay, and then somewhere along the line, there are 7 of these things around her, and then they become the seven virgins in certain Islam faiths. I mean, are you seeing the repeat of stupid, rinse, repeat, stupid, continuously over and over and over because people are lacking the internal sight. They keep going for what is the foresight in front there, physical, tangible, material, dominion, domain, war terrain, peace terrain, red, white, blue, red, orange. So therefore the idea of Sophia was misrepresented as even an existing deity to begin with. Like I said, a personified element. Okay? I'm saying that Sophia never existed, and that I'm saying that beings that were deified as gods or goddesses were trapped spirits from humans while they're trying to get the control of an actual supernatural spirit to begin with. So countless images of this Sophia that has been rendered and changed and added and done up, and then they take away her physical features and turn her into a man, and then she turns into a woman, and there's a lot of gender swapping. It's just going over and over and over. The facial features, just add a little mole there, just give her a little halo. It's the same frequency, keeps perpetuating itself, because that's what people do. Again, I'm talking about those that copy the artificers, those that keep playing the story out over and over. It's not like I've needed to tell you this is, you already know this. Okay. How does this help you? It helps you to look more into yourself, where you are and where you stand with who you are. When magic is used for the purpose of destruction, according to those who follow the great Ahura Mazda, quote from their works, they are called sorcerers. So they even are aware of snake-like weirdness in certain ones of their own kind, their own members. Perhaps it's time to finally actually break this ring of artificers, break their ring. I think we are. Trapezoid or rhomboid portrayed as a temple, but also as a womb in Gnosticism. In their own words, I will share it as well. Gnostics believe that the universe is the womb, but the universe is only made up of ether and time and space as a measurement. That means the universe doesn't exist as how it's being portrayed, or how Star Trek has portrayed the universe. Okay. A trapezoid is a container in the same manner as a temple or a vessel or a jar or a cup or a container or a bucket or a house or a temple, like I said, to be inside of, something to be put into. Okay, because the frequency relates to something that's built, and something must be put into it because it just cannot stop doing that. Okay, the Russian dolls. I've created videos, script keepers on the Russian dolls. It's also there on my Odyssey channel. You'll see on the link there. Have a look there. Which is also the channel for my material in case YouTube gets the zig. So a trapezoid is a container in the same manner as a temple, as a vessel for something to be inside of, to be held in. Okay. With the ring around it, it could also represent a feminine frequency or a masculine frequency around something that is the egg, or something that is an egg, an ovum, or a circle, or a sun, however you want to look at it, or a Saturn. Yeah. So its function is seen as a womb where which the essence of the spirit is sent into to become formulated into a godlike entity, because that's, after all, the desire is to become a godlike entity. Firstly, you would need to see the godlike entities as perceived as things that are supernatural before you can actually create a god to begin with, which they cannot, which is not possible, because I think by now the supernatural beings have retracted themselves based on the last two videos that we've done to free them actually up from their houses, the houses that were trapping them in. Now I think that the original owners of the original homes are now put back into place. That means all the imposters that were sent there, like the Crowleys and everybody else, are now kicked out. And its function is seen, okay, yeah, like I said, that is what happened. First, you would need to, like I said, get a god, to create a god, but we'll use 10 human spirits, which could maybe be the power of this god. This god is like 10 powers. That is as strong as by the power of 10 human spirits. That's also how they operate. It's what they think. It's how they think. And then they create things to entice the spirit to come in, the supernatural spirit to come in there. But it's not going to happen. It's not happening anymore. Anyway, using the Ophite diagram is another example to show you, that's placed over the Kabbalah Sephiroth diagram, then believing that you can be Mithras, who can destroy all the Celestials, and then finds his way right next to the seat next to Apollo, I think was, or Sol. At the same time, he must sacrifice the bull, or TORUS, of course, in order for him to get there. So there's a lot of focus on that all the time. The TORUS needs to be continuously sacrificed. The bull must be sacrificed, as with Mithras and the mythology of it, so that he can take control over the place where Apollo used to be. So he could take over the place to be the ruler of the world. Since everyone believed back in the day that the sun was God, back in the day, of course. Meanwhile, it was just another celestial. So the importance of rituals, enactment, its dramatic enactments, its interplay, the studies of mythologies in terms of celestials or archons, is the same as AI technology, circuitry, dream weaving, cyber magic, cybermancy, gods, goddess cults, Mithras and Cybele, directly linked to Taurus in its very dynamics. This is why they got upset, because that's the main thing. Angels, angles, and all mixed up with false Gnostica. Gnosticism as a religion, it then became a religion of sect of just another religion, splintering off and so forth and so on. Like I said, copy, paste, and carrying on the same shit, which is like the rib that was taken from Adam to create another religion. The rib is the law. Okay, the rib is not, he had to take it out, and that's why he's got a floating rib. Bullshit. It's not that literal. A rib is a law. It is a set of laws, a subset of a law. To take from another country or another continent or another religion, which was maybe Adam or the first of some, or taking information from or religious information from Egypt, which was perhaps, according to them, the first Adam, and out of that they took a law and subsets of it to create Eve, which is another sect or religion. So you have to look at it in that way as well. So all of this requires theft and abuse and control and spinning information to suit narratives, which is what the artificers are doing. Plus, they are using magical crap as well in between all of it. So mythologies is the template that they use. So everything is mythologically templated in this material realm. Yeah. So the Gnostics thought that Sophia or the Ein Sof was the feminine expression of God. Like I said, that's their words. When in actual fact, the original creative force does not require a thing to deify itself as a version which they could understand. Okay, you don't need to have that. If you, yeah, leave it there. The Gnostics have believed that the realm of is evil, making them focus mainly on the goddess as the only sole, preserver of themselves, which the Kabbalists have focused on the very same frequency or idea of the Ein Sof, which is the very same thing. From Sophia came a demiurge, created entity, which was said to rule alongside of the archons, which is the ideology for duality to be perpetuated. Okay, you must have, if you want to see this, you must have that to see that. That's hermetic as well. And this very same nature of this entity belonging to the Gnostics have also been clothed up and dressed up as the whore of Babylon. And then the same material gets spun again, and now she becomes a worshipped priestess of this cult. And then the same goddess is now suddenly emasculated or dismembered, and violated, whatever, and now she becomes a masculine, which is like what happened with Mithras. Mithras was emasculated and portrayed as um, Attis. Attis was Cybele. Okay, so let me explain this. Cybele was a created cult by the Romans who uh, took the deities and the religions from Greece. When Greece beat them 4 times in war, they submitted to Greece's religion and changed their goddess that they had called Rhea to Cybele. So the mother of all gods became transformed into Cybele, evil, ugly bitch, with 2 lions, of course, is there. And oh no, 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 wait, she had a consort. The Greeks referred to Rhea as having a son. Okay, they who started the Cybele cult gave her the consort Attis as her lover. Okay, how sick is that, right? And in the same process, Mithras is also Attis. Attis is an Anatolian uh, figure, god that comes from Indo-Iranian, and his name was Mithras at the time. Then his name was actually Christ, and you'll see where I'm going with all of this. I'll explain more in detail. They've actually emasculated a man to turn him into a female. Towards the end, you'll see more on this. So the same goddess was now turned into a male who was now emasculated as Mithras or Attis, the son of Cybele, had then been used for the statue of Libertas, which is quite disturbing as well. And Libertas is the statue of Attis, who is an emasculated man. Okay, not liberty, like the Frenchman stole that information and swapped it around and turned it around. That statue of Attis, you can't say that they're not aware of it, because that statue is somewhere in some hidden little backdrop somewhere at the back so that no one could see it, with the spikes on the head, which is the sun crown. Okay. The very same nature of this entity belonging to the Gnostics have now been clothed, like I said, as that. And so it's been changed. This is why I'm calling it wardrobe. I think you're seeing where I'm going with this. So, but on a metaphysical perspective, we have to look at it this way. We will be looking at to see what this actually all means in terms of the masculine and the feminine principles, and with relevance to the artificers of the TORUS, and that the worshippers of the trapezoids, how it all starts to clear up for you in the end. Gnostic doctrines as a collective is much like the New Age information that's been going on around. I mean, it's not changed much. It's exactly the same. People are still worshipping everything all at the same time. They still believe themselves to be Skittles in a packet of 100 other Skittles, and that they're all Skittles as a collective, like they for the noun word, as one person is now called they, as in legion, but it's all Skittles. Anyway, so the very nature is based on subjected belief systems coming from the Gnostic aspect, and placing an overruler over the minds, because you need to have a ruler, you need to have a packet, you need to have that packet to say that you are all Skittles or Skittle. Meanwhile, the Sophianic element, who they all worshipped, or the supposed feminine aspect, was nothing other than a reworked version of the Greek goddess called Rhea, but only because she was the mother of all gods. Okay, that's basically how it works. And so, also formerly known as the mother, yeah, like I said to you, as the mother of all gods, based on the Hellenistic religions. This is why they nailed Greece, because they're still angry. Because, anyway, so from the following website, the link, I'll give it to you, glorian.org. So let me cite for you, based on the Gnostic lectures. Uh, yeah. Okay. So here it goes. So don't forget. What makes Gnosticism so acceptable is that they vilify the material realm. Okay, so those that are really upset and deadbeatly angry with everything around them can see evil everywhere now. Okay, and out of the same mouths they can proclaim that they've been saved, but that at the same time they venerate their sexuality, which is the breaking up of the body in slots, like I've told you from before, the Sephirotic tree with all the little dots, with all the little smarties or skittles for every color, for every part of the physical form. You know what I mean? You have to live in a straitjacket, but you have all the parts of you segmented from you so that you can't really access it, but you've got to have the snake coming all the way up and coming all the way down, because that's what the image looks like. The snake goes up and it comes down, right? So whatever you're thinking is going straight back to your basic root. The first triangle of the tree of life, that's there now, quote here, is the Sephiroth Kether, Chokmah, and Bina, just give them all names, is ruled by the crown. Second triangle of the tree of life, formed by the Sephiroth Chesed, Gebura, and Tippereth. This triangle is controlled by Chokmah, the second Sephiroth of the crown. And then that's basically what they give the assigned things. Now remember the pyramid on the head. This is actually the pyramid on the head and the pyramid at the bottom, and I'll show you in this image. Who does this remind you of? Compartmentalizing the self by slotting the self into a diagram that could potentially help you to change your life path, and it influences pretty much everything that existed within this material realm. So the next thing that they add here is, this is why we say that the kingdom of the Father is in the head, okay, but the kingdom of the Son is in the heart, because the second triangle is related with the lungs and heart, and then the lungs take the spirit, the breath, the air, and the atmosphere. The lungs are related to the Sephiroth, Chesed, and Gebura, and the spirit and the spiritual soul, while the heart relates to the Tippereth. End quote. What it actually means is this. Here's the corrected version. Kingdom of Father is not in your head, okay? It is in your spirit via your heart. It is not just Father, it is Mother and Father, and you are the child of Mother and Father. Creation is in your voice, and the ability to breathe through your creation when you speak it with your intention is spirited. Spirited. The energy from your voice into what you create, what you speak, your soul is part of this creation. You listen to something, you think it's a good idea, you write the notes for that music piece. You play the music piece, and it's a beautiful piece of music, and there it is. Your soul was in that music piece. Beautiful, creative, original art done from the heart, from the spirit, from that unity. You can also be a good copy artist, which is what they do really well. You can actually see things that have zero soul and spirit in it, and you can see things that have absolutely a lot of spirit and soul in it. And just because it's colorful and glitzy doesn't mean that it has the presence of spirit and heart in it. Okay, remember that that's what they can also use to con you with. The next flaw is this. Tippereth is the human soul, and it is called the Son of Man, Benny Adam. Oh, here's another Adam. Okay, so we have Adam Cadmon, and then we have Benny Adam, and it's just the Adam. And Chokmah relates to the human soul. This is how you have to see it in your physicality. End quote. Then they say in the next quote, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge shared the roots in the sexual organs. End quote. Here's the corrected version. Soul is feminine, and you do not get a human soul. You get soul, and then you get spirit. You don't get human soul, human spirit. Although, as I said to you in the beginning, a spirit that has passed away, that has been a human in human form before, is a human originated spirit. Okay, it's got nothing to do with this explanation. Soul is feminine and is the world wanderer, the anima mundi or the anima mundus, like I've said before, who relates to the spirit and relays to the spirit information as the eternal, infinite, masculine and feminine principle as energy through love. Okay? On the tree of life, it is a sigil to trap you in. Like the cross is there to crucify the image of man, so is that thing a torture cage to put you inside of that. Okay, and that is how they want you to be tortured. So as I've said, the snake, and that's basically it. Okay, and as I've said, the snake is actually really the Leviathan, not the dragon. Dragon is something that comes from the sky, which means it relates to the upper realm of the association with the age of creation. Okay. It is not even, it's something that's not even in context with the information here. So when they say the snake or the dragon, they don't know exactly how to explain it because they don't know, because they just copied the same mistake over. Yeah, it is supposedly astrological, but here's a picture of what they see. The snake or the serpent is associated with a kundalini. Then why is the snake suddenly a dragon? All right. Remember that the dragon in concept, in principle, is an element that actually comes from even before this. It was the original perceived idea of understanding creation from the beginning, perhaps by peoples or nations that had existed long before. So it's an extremely old primordial symbol from before. Okay, whereas the snake, as symbolically as it is used, or the leviathan, use the correct word, is more related to the symbol of this Sephiroth symbol. Okay, and also Michael slayed the dragon. So I don't understand how they can. If they say that the dragon is, so the snake goes up and he becomes a dragon, and then he flies down and becomes a snake again, um, and Michael then slayed the dragon. So what does that mean? Do you understand? There's no logic in that reasoning in what they're explaining. So if Michael is a demon, then what does it mean? What sits in your head if you're a worshipper of Gnosticism? So the Gnostics and the Ophites, did they let Michael in to save them, perhaps? Did they lend their ears to Christianity? Did they lend their ears to Catholicism? Or where does Michael actually come from? When then they explain Michael to actually be the Yahweh, but then he's also the Metatron, but then he's also the Savior. So do you see where I'm going with this? Okay. So it's entirely incorrect assumption, completely confusing, conflicting. Um, Sophia is a personified element, and so is the demiurge in regards to how they are projecting it, presenting it. Okay, the demiurge is not a supernatural being. The demiurge was used as an image for a spirit to be trapped into. I said before I connected with the demiurge, and that is why I'm saying to you it's just a human spirit. It was another human spirit trapped inside of a vessel of an image. This is why the material is the way that it is, because of exploring it and investigating it. And just because I connect with that which has passed away does not mean that I do necromancy. It means that I am actually invested in trying to understand how things are after the physical realm. FYI, the dragon beings were actually the enemies of the Orions. Keep that in mind. The original creative force does not require an entity to present a masculine or feminine frequency of any sort. You are either masculine or free or feminine in your physical form, but in your receptive, you are masculine and feminine in your observation and taking information in and practicing it out. If you are just sitting there and getting information, you do nothing about it, then you are just in that feminine frequency and you stay in there. You don't ever do anything for yourself with that information. The next image is very important. It's called the reconstructed diagram of ophites. From the link of the Wikipedia, I need to explain to you here, there's very little information on the Ophites themselves, other than that other thing I've read to you about them. But from Wiki, this is what they give. The Ophites are also called Ophians, Ophiani, or Ophis the snake, were a Christian Gnostic sect depicted by Hippolytus of Rome in Lost Works. The syntagram or syntagma, which is the arrangement, that is what it's called. The Ophite diagrams are rituals and esoteric diagrams used by the Ophite sect of Gnosticism, who revered the serpent from the Garden of Eden as a symbol of wisdom, which the malevolent demiurge tried to hide from Adam and Eve. Celsus and his opponent Origen, 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 contra Celsum, that is who he was, both described the diagrams, though not in the same way. Celsus described them as 10 separated circles. Like I said, they always go in circles. Circumscribed by one circle, the world soul. Leviathan divided by a thick black line. Tartarus together with a square, which is a symbol for material realm, actually, with words said at the gates of paradise with the two sphinxes. Further to this, the Ophites are said by Celsus to add the sayings of prophets and circles upon circles, with some things written within the two great cosmological circles representing God and the Father and God the Son. Yeah, I don't know how they managed to become birthed, though. Pretty much what they're pushing for now, I suppose, braided men. Origen maintains that there were the two concentric circles across the diameter of which were inscribed the words Father and Son. A smaller circle hung from the larger one with the words love. Smaller circle, of course. So Father and Son and love. Okay, a wall divides the realm of light from the middle realm. Two others, concentric circles, one light and one dark, represents light and shadow hanging from the double circle with the inscription life. And this enclosed two other circles, as you can see in the diagram, which intersected each other and formed a rhomboid. There you go. There's a magical word, rhomboid. That means trapezoid, the nature of wisdom. So the rhomboid is the providence of wisdom. Their words. Here's another diagram, a very important one for you to look at. Look at the placements of where Leviathan is. Reconstructed diagram of Ophites, snake worshippers of a womb, where the trapezoid is triangular in shape, representing a woman's private parts. Placement of Adam Cadman as in the cross or being crucified. He is also cross-legged, which I need you to see very clearly. I presume the man who is depicted as Adam is possibly emasculated because of the teachings of what went on with Origen, and I'll explain that to you. Origen had allegedly self-castrated himself. Eusebius claims in his ecclesiastical history that as a young man, Origen secretly paid a physician to surgically castrate him, a claim which affected Origen's reputation for centuries. It still does, because they still do it. When you castrate yourself as a male, on a metaphysical level, it means you stop yourself from speaking things. You do this. That's what they did with the masks. Okay, that was one of a ritual that was played out during a certain time period in this century. Eusebius claims that as a young man, following a literal reading of Matthew, in which Jesus is presented as saying, "There are eunuchs who have made themselves eunuch for the sake of the kingdom of heaven." Origen castrated himself or had someone else do that for him in order to ensure that his reputation as a respectable tutor to young men and women is secured. Meanwhile, okay, Eusebius further alleged that Origen privately told Demetrius, the bishop of Alexandria, about the castration, and that Demetrius initially praised him for his devotion to God and on account of this. However, Origen never mentions anything about having castrated himself and any other of surviving material, which he obviously burned because it was such a shame. Origen himself was involved in constructing the diagram of the Ophites, FYI. Now you know why Adam, his legs are cross-legged. Hence why the figurine of Adam is cross-legged, like I said, and maybe also perhaps why the Templars' legs were cross-legged too. And we'll just leave it there because most of them have been involved in the cult of Cybele, which is about the castration and the emasculation of male soldiers and priests at the time to show the support of the ritual while under the flowy red stuff coming out of the bull being decapitated, um, yeah, bathed in the blood of the Taurus, of the bull. Okay, so on crossing the legs, metaphysically, like I said, they're crossing the red and the blue. In the trapezoid, it's the masculine and feminine electricity. If it's crossed over one another, then it can cancel one another out. Those currents can cancel one another out. Okay, metaphysically speaking, please. Okay, so unlike as the image depicts played on the cross between six uh, circles or balls on the Sephirotic tree of Kabbalah, while Eve is underneath, perceived as holding up the pillars, which is Joachim and Boaz, which they've just thrown in Masons in there, and she should just carry all the weight. Um, Eve is the soul, okay, the soul, meaning they're building the temple on the spirit, on the soul of a human, okay, of a person. Their temples are built on the backs of a spirit. They don't understand that the soul is feminine, or maybe they do. Okay, so he is also the rendition of a Greek religion as Rhea. Again, they've even thrown her in. That's where she comes from as well. Just mixed everything up. Mother of gods, like I've said, who have been adopted by Romans around 200 BC, and they modified her into Cybele, like I've mentioned. And then Attis was actually her son, who she supposedly, according to Roman mythologies, had castrated because he fell in love with another woman, which is actually their story, just like Osiris was. And so the Tree of Kabbalah diagram here, we will look at this as well, is based on a system of nether regions. Remember that the serpent goes down and not up, ever. If it goes up, it just comes down. So whatever is there, I don't know, what's the point? Genitalia rules the mind. That's how you should see it. When you look a little bit deeper into the image, if I could just highlight it there, the genitalia that rules the mind, the basement of Tartarus is also related to the root chakra or sexual focus, and which is perceived as with a snake, with a black, Sethian, which is nighttime, with a snake at the bottom, not a dragon. The snake has 7 heads or reaches to seven little eggs or things at the bottom there. And according to the Kabbalah, 2 poles and the entity with wings, like Mesopotamian image of Ahura Mazda, is also relevant here. And the wing disc is really I think the 7 eggs or things that it's covering its head on is 7 aeons or seven sins, 7 deadly sins or something like that, or archons, which is in the base, which they know of. And the winged disc is really a rough rendition of Ahura Mazda's timeline, completely out of time, of course. And the supposed dragon, with the 7 heads, is really the snake controlling 7 regions. Like I think also, like I just said, dominions or countries or reaches. The serpent rules over 7 kingdoms, which is what they use. Closer into the image at the bottom, on every leaf of the tree, are the symbols of the celestials representing the heavenly bodies. You can see Gemini, you can see them there. Okay, you can see all of the other celestial symbols there alchemically. So the trapezoid to become the place through which things are birthed into or out of, and so they act on these rituals to enact it with serious role playing, of course. From another piece that is very important that refers to the feminine frequency being used here, which is the soul or the spirit. They are confused between the soul and the spirit, okay? So keep that in mind. Anything that is feminine is based on soul, okay? Cybele is associated with Metis, which is a fragmented association with the cult of Cybele and the Knight Templars. Like I said, material comes from the translation of Hammer Purgstall's works. Here's the link for the page if you want to read it all. An image of the goddess holding the sun and the moon that is depicted in the previous image where she holds up the two pillars. They have made the pillars appear to be the pillars of society, or the sun and the moon, which is based on the Freemason tracing board information. And Metis's image is right there, which you'll see. It was found in Burgundy, this particular work, translation, and on the lid is sculptured a figure naked with a headdress resembling that give. I'm not going to go into the page because it's quite explicit, so I'll be reading it to you. You must find it out for yourself to look at the images. On the lid is sculptured a figure naked with a headdress resembling that given to Cybele in ancient monuments. The diadem, okay, keep that in mind, holding up a chain with each hand, within each hand, and surrounded with various symbols. The symbol and the moon above, and the star and the pentacles below, and under the feet a human skull. So building on the backs of the dead, necromancy, you become again. So the chains are explained by by Bergstall as representing the chains of aeons of the Gnostics. So obviously he's had that. He was working on that at the time as well. So on the four sides of the coffer, which is the device or the box in which things were put in, we see a series of figures engaged in the performance of various ceremonies, which I will not go into detail with. You will see this for yourself, and this relates to the rites of the Gnostics and the Ophians. Okay, the offerings of a calf, which is related to a baby bull, I would say, figures prominently amongst these rites, a worship which is said still to exist amongst the Nosarai, yeah, or Nazarenes, the Druses, or the Druids, yeah, and other sects in the East. In the middle of the scenes of one side, a human skull is seen raised upon the pole. So on the head of your mind, um, these things take place. On another side of the androgyny, figure is shown as the object of worship in the candidates for initiation, who wear masks apparently of a cat, which is the lunar cult, lunar pillar symbol for the lunar cults, and whose form of adoration reminds us of the kiss that was enacted during certain initiations of the Templars, which I said I urge you to read for yourself. Um, so the second of the coffers is the cabinet of the Duke de Blancas. The Blancas was found in Tuscany and rather larger than one just described, with the same material. Um, a large goblet or bowl or marble in the Imperial Museum at Vienna is surrounded by a series of figures of similar characters, which are engraved with by Hammer Bergstall, who sees in one group of men who are furnished in the original with prominent type phallic symbolic symbols of serpents. It's a direct line to the Ophite rites, and I will cut this part. I will leave this part out here because it just becomes a bit more involved, and then I'll read to the rest for you here, where Bergstall also considered that it was simply a Greek word for wisdom, a personification in what we may perhaps call the Gnostic mythology, like I said, answering it to or relating it to Sophia by way of the Ophites. He considered that the name Baphomet is derived from the Greek words the baptism of metis, and that in its application it is equivalent with the name Mete itself, or Met. He has further shown, we think conclusively, that Baphomet, instead of being a corruption of Mahomet, was a name known amongst the Gnostic sects in the East. Seven kingdoms, right? The snake with the seven kingdoms. Greek word wisdom is a personification in what we may perhaps call the Gnostic mythology, answering to the Sophia of the Ophinites. He considered that the name Baphomet is derived from the Greek words the baptism of Metis, and that in its application it is equivalent with the name Met itself, like I said. So Met or Baphomet is in accord with the statement in the formal list of articles. In accord with the statement of the formal list of articles or of accusations against the Templars, that they worship their idol because it made the trees to flourish and the earth to germinate. That's why they carried on doing it. So it was for the all greater good, don't you know? The abjuration of the formula of the monuments seems to be identical with the denial of the initiation of novices to the order of the temple, and the closing words of the formal suggests sexual indulgences. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Like I said, enter at your peril, read it all, and look at it at your peril. The following section is very important as well. This is why I keep bringing in Saturn. There are some aspects with regard to Saturn, and I will clarify that for you. At a certain time period when Saturn was the main solar source, it was perceived as the main solar source. The frequency was completely different. The original creative frequency used to have had to present itself as the main creative force was visible through celestials and felt through celestials at the time. And formerly, when Saturn was presented or was seen, they had perceived it as a malefic celestial or heavenly body in astrological terms. Now, I said I'm not an astrologer, so I could just only share with you what they use. So Saturn is not what it was made out to be at the time. It was presented completely differently. So I will explain here what actually happened. So if you ever wondered if the Orions ever existed, you just need to look at the frequency as it is right now. Like I said to you, the Orions are functioning in every empire that has ever existed. This is meta history, which is history from before the realm became what it is. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to go and look at that playlist again. So in astrology, the term malefic is used to refer to something that has a detrimental or negative meaning within the context of astrological interpretations. If you see the Father, you will die. There's a malefic connotation to that statement. That means if you look into God, you will die. That's the statement. That is perceived as malefic. Okay. Malefic planets are those who cause bad or harmful or believed to cause harm or bad effects on a person. In astrology, the Sun, Mars, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu are generally seen as malefic planets, which means they impact the human spirit and its soul in various ways. That is, if you are bonded by the movements of the celestials around your life. You can function without being controlled by any of those things. It is possible. Those are just belief systems as well. So astrology depicted Saturn through the ages between time and eternity. So it was tied up to that. Saturn's qualities was that of being cold and had more natural kinship with night time. It's where you would think the deepest things, I think. And cold Saturn in the warmer days and hot Mars in cooler nights. So these planets are opposition to one another during season periods. Saturn represents the beginning and the end of a great work of the alchemists, as our soul, as it was seen as that your soul passes through the influence of the planets to Earth and back again. They saw that as the pathway. And it was also seen as the gateway between temporal body and eternal soul, which again they split up and they keep cutting out the spirit. You know, okay, so the consciousness and the unconscious mind, basically. So Saturn is gaseous, formless, and not chaotic, which means it's transient and it is a contained movement, and it is intransient and slow, which means it presents itself as masculine and feminine in its qualities, which means it can give as well as be receptive of or for from other celestials around it. Okay. Um, the planets are also assigned to two groups in many types of astrology, which is benefic and malefic planets. And in the simplest terms, a benefic planet in your birth chart means good or positive influences, and malefic means bad or unwell, or challenging, as they say. But typically, because of belief systems, like I said to you, you can actually function without having that control you. You can be beyond that control and influence. You don't have to be locked into it. Okay? So, uh, the interesting part here is religions and belief systems were based as masculine and feminine, depending on the influences they had on one another at certain times during celestial movements, that basically could either turn certain things or present certain things in either the light of it or in the dark of it, or highlight everything, just like what we've had just now. Um, so yeah, uh, celestials can function as a particular influence on that. I think it's because of all of the blood, the water inside of the body that's influenced by the outside forces or sources. So the story about Apollo, though, which is the sun, which presented itself in, let me say, it was yellow a few years ago, then it became white, then it became blue, and then it was red once upon a time, presents itself at different frequencies, at different angles. Okay. In the same way, Mithras was presented as well, while observing four Apollos sitting, or Apollo with his guests, and Mithras in submission or busy, um, cutting the bull's head off. Okay, so yeah, and that was because of the cult of Mithras. Mithras was also Attis, as I said. The winged disc, Ahura Mazda, like I said, I would bring this information back up and actually share this with you as something very important as well with regards to Mithras, because the Ahura Mazda uh, was also seen as Mithras and was originally also related to Saturn. So this relates to a time period, I'm assuming, and eventually was also Cybele at the time. At the time, the rendition of the image of the wing disk is literally actually Saturn and the wings Mercury, and there you will see the circle with the rod underneath it, which actually looks like a, yeah, that. Mythologies that depicted Saturn to be masculine, but it was also associated with its feminine counterpart, which was Rhea. But Saturn, or let me say Kronos, okay, let me not mix up the. So we're looking at Kronos as the Greek Hellenistic part, and then Saturn, which is the Roman name for Kronos. That's the planet with the ring around it, okay? And it is a projection as well. It was associated with Saturn or Kronos, but Saturn ate his kids while Kronos was the father of time. So, um, side note here, much like the mythologies have been written by the artificers to repeat over and over certain ideas, they'd also changed the images to suit their narratives. So you're looking at a type of slow programming of the ages, and doing things over and over by repeat, rinse and repeat, copy, rinse and repeat, which will stick in that head of yours. You're also looking at the Mesopotamian diagram, which is also quite much interesting here. It depicts that symbol of the tree that you see so much as really the symbol for fallopian tubes. therefore was also seen as a process of preserving their seeds, is how they understood it to be in the diagram. The Assyrian image of tree is vaguely reveals the diagram of the Kabbalah tree, where there's a crisscross, and you'll see the little trapezoids in there as well. So you can't tell me people have not seen that. I thought it had something to do with harvesting eggs for rituals, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm just thinking it's just a thought. Okay. So rituals and magical incantations in order for the rituals to draw into the vessels of their children or other more dastardly things, or to contain the spirit of the celestial, perceived celestial, as from the last video that I've explained, that celestials are not all godlike. There's a massive focus on bringing in to being the birthing of an aeon of wisdom. They keep doing it. Like I said to you, I called it aeon of Horus. It's the same fucking thing. The birthing of wisdom of the age of Sophia is now the next thing, because we're in the age of Aquarius. So it is for them the belief system where there's water, the feminine frequency needs to be birthed into some vessel. And that's why they're holding all these rituals happening, and why they're preparing for bigger ones coming in this year. It's, like I said in the beginning of this year, I said this year is going to be different because it's going to be filled with a lot of magical shit. Okay, so there's a massive focus on bringing in this birthing of the age of wisdom, or Sophia, which they'll call whatever they want to call it. Ammerberg still called her Baphomet. It's the same thing. Perfect timing for the age of Aquarius. Okay, to be the water bearer, water, which is coming, which means water flowing water out of the container or the jar, which is related to spirit flow. They've been trying this for years, like I said. Baptism of water is baptism of spirit and wisdom. So baptism in the Aquarian age is related to the ritual that they wish to do, which is not going to happen because we've just basically screwed their plans up right now with this material. Okay, which is by interesting sake, they've actually caused a lot of chaos with regards to that. They're very much stressed right now. Even as they're watching here, they know it's not going to work. It's going to fail. So that means everything that they've done, they're going to be having to take responsibility for. Anyway, so Saturn up close. Let me come back here to Saturn. Very interesting. Saturn, the ancient Babylonians believed Saturn to be the oldest spirit in the heavens, symbolized the cosmic law of limits. Saturn was also metal or lead, or represented alchemy. Lead symbolizes the principles of the contraction, stability, structure, and materialism. Astrologically, Saturn is represented by Capricorn and Aquarius. This is why it's so important. Capricorn is the mountain goat that climbs to new heights, all the while being firmly grounded. Aquarius is a herald of a new age, and the symbol symbolizes transformation. Saturn was also the god from the Roman religion and a character in Roman mythology, and in Greek he was depicted as Kronos. He was described as the god of time, generation, dissolution, abundance, wealth, agriculture, periodic renewal, and liberation. So you can see the difference in how you look at things, right? Saturn's mythological reign was depicted as a golden age before Olympus kicked him out. Okay. The artificers, who think that they are godlike when they are able to create an image of a god, then to be able to render it into a harmed state so that they can take it out by acting out certain rituals so that they can say, yeah, we've killed a god, makes me another god. That's the belief system, okay? Saturn, okay, Kronos, there's also brotherhoods. Obviously, there's not one thing that's not being tied to any celestial, like the Saturn fraternity, brotherhoods, fraternitas Saturni, or Brotherhood of Saturn was also a focused thing where they had, in Germany, initiated secret doctrines, ritual practices, magical formulas. Brotherhood's ideology was the idea of Saturn Gnosticism. Again, the interplay of opposing forces in the universe leading to the realization of the individual self as a godlike entity. Okay, there it is. The Order's teachings on cosmology, the Kabbalah, the Saturnian sacraments, electrical magic, Saxo cosmology, sex magic rites, the sexual mysticism, the yoga of the dark light, Kundalini crap, and the transcribes many of their actual rituals and practices, including the highly controversial Gradus Pentalphaea, whatever that is. Anyway, I didn't even bother looking for it. I'm not interested. So Kronos was seen to have appeared to be to the Greeks as a being that had a side to him that was either split or in two sides, which is where they got confused with Janus, calling Janus the two-faced god, one looking back, one looking forward, which in actual fact was actually just the embodiment of the movements of Kronos in the celestial events. Okay, so we could literally dig deeper into Saturn, but I'm actually not going to do that because really it's too long and too much, and everyone has their own version of the story. However, it becomes quite apparent when you look at all the ages in which there was a veneration of some sort of deity, celestial or solar deity, that was perceived to believe it to have been a god that ruled over the world of and over nations, whomever they were back in the day. Okay, my point is that as much as Saturn and any other celestial that was used for the purpose to be a god to rule over, that people still believed in the external objects to find some solace, to make them feel safe. Those who can control and write the most about these gods and things, as the artificers have been doing and still do, who are now pooping themselves right now, it also gave them by default the belief in their own superiority complex as kings and queens and lords of the gods of high, and blah blah blah. And these historical snippets I've shared are only some of the highlights of how religions and belief systems have been cooked up to screw with your mind and your spirit and your soul and your very existence. Right, so the main focus is to trap spirits, like I've always said to you from the start, um, to perceive it then to be supernatural, just like many spirits from deceased people are found to be trapped into belief systems. So too are people's own spirits, essences being trapped into beliefs, faiths, trapped in certain vestiges of lifestyles, etc. The Romans made the same and gave the counter. It's quite interesting how it happened. Rome took the goddess of life and fertility and the mother of gods and turned her into a cult, calling her Cybele, and she became the one that had destroyed her son Attis. Uh, okay, so it's important to understand because Rhea was depicted as the woman with two lions next to her, which you'll see here now. I just need to give you a little portion here of something very interesting before I round it off. Okay. So Queen Hatshep's suit from Egypt was also perceived as a very powerful female pharaoh. She wore a false beard at the time, which means she was hiding part of herself because it was unseen for them that she was a woman, and then she would lose her kingdom. That was the story. So in the columns of text inscribed by her legs on the front of her throne, she has already adopted to the throne name Mat Kare, Mat, which comes from Metes, which is Met, which is Rhea, which is Cybele. Okay, you see these names. It said Lady of the Two Lands. Those two lands are those two lions that are next to Rhea, and bodily daughter of Rhea, which is the sun, which is the god then for them at the time. And on the back of the throne, part of this enigmatic scene is preserved, which probably consisted of two back-to-back goddesses, which is Janus with the two faces, made to look like she is able to control the past, to be able to control the future. that same frequency keeps coming in. Okay, so here's the link to that museum. The metmuseum.org is there. Rhea was also known as the mother of all gods. The mother goddess was not the name for earth, nor was it the name for God, nor was it Sophia, blah, 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 nor not this open sky, not the moon, but the dwelling of a central sun, the enclosure of the realm, okay? Which means they've rooted her frequency, or they've rooted Rhea as the counterpart or as the wife of Kronos, locked into the material realm, okay? Which means she is forming the torus around the realm. Remember I said you get the white, yellow, red, blue sun based on the trapezoid, based on the angles, based on the frequency, and based on the person perceiving it, okay? And on the central sun as the one that is black is the inner sun, or the black sun, which is the little black dot inside of the white, okay? The white is the sun, the ring is the Saturn ring, and the little black dot is the black sun, or the sun that is the inner sun. There is a very strong drive to bring that information to fruition, because they believe that if they're able to go through this total solar eclipse that we're going into, that it relates to the actual bringing out of the goddess of wisdom through the black sun, which is the solar eclipse. So the black sun is the inverted solar energy inside of the realm, or seen as Tartarus, which is underneath the trapezoid. Underneath the trapezoid, okay? There where it's black, underneath it, okay? The pyramid that everyone seems to be fixated on as the pyramid of control, people are looking at it wrong. You are not even in the basement of that pyramid. You are underneath the pyramid, okay? Because you're wearing the pyramid on your head. You're letting the pyramid, the entire pyramid structure, control your head based on the Gnostics, okay? Okay, so the black sun is also seen as the womb, or as a place out of something that's going to be birthed. Much like seeing the Greek image of Rhea with the two lions next to her. The two lions are the pillars, or the two lands, and she is the womb out of which whatever it is they want to get birthed out of. It's symbolic, okay, metaphysically. Out of two lands, so out of two countries, or two things, two continents, something is being birthed out of. Like I said, the whole entire ritual is now being screwed over, because whatever it was that they had wanted to put into place, I mean, they really went to great length to actually stop stuff. It's not going to happen anymore. It's basically made null and void. Just like, yeah, that's just how it always is, remember? Interesting part here, the artificers, that basically, okay, so here is the example I want to show you on looking at the soul as the feminine as well. The soul is also a symbol for, which is a circle with a dot in, which means it says to you, the soul is the round ball, and the little black dot is the feminine. So masculine and feminine, okay? Feminine and masculine. They're interchangeable between what they represent. Okay? Rhea, the Greek religious goddess, became Cybele in Rome, became a vicious, bloodthirsty creature, who then became a symbol for from Anu, Sumerian Anu, Ninurta, Tammuz, and Enki, and all of these things are also in there. Sophia as well, the Quetzalcoatl, the dragon with the winged serpent, which is also Gnosticism as well. And based on that frequency of being the presenting aspect of the material realm, matter is also matter, material realm. This place you are sitting in with your body in the original frequency as it's coming to you is also a symbol for that. So there's the drive to do that. all the time while perpetuating duality and smarty skittle mentality. So remember, duality does not exist. Duality is made to exist so that you are unable to have any other understanding other than what they present to you, yes or no, left or right, black or white. Unity, wholeness, means to be whole, means that you are in unity with creation and creation and creatorship within you, which means, like I explained, you have the masculine and the feminine principles within you. You have the spirit and the soul that are in unison with one another. It convenes through your love, through heart, and reaches into a higher perspective of a temple here, okay? There's not Father God sitting there. And Rhea is not, because I said to you matter, Rhea is not Gaia. Okay, so those are those that are Gaia obsessed. That is a syndrome. You need to get away from it because the realm is material in its existence, which means it's being fed frequency, energy, so that it functions in its harmony, like I've said from the very beginning of this video. So go back there, listen to it again. Gaia does not exist. Gaia was not even mentioned anywhere. Gaia was thrown in somewhere because it sounded nice and cute. Okay. The original understanding and perception of the cosmos itself, the place in which celestials dwell, was actually observed as the visible house or dwelling in which the Great Father and Great Mother, which is related to Saturn, okay, or Kronos, and as an intelligent being that roamed, the ball as father and the ring as mother in the accompaniment, which means soul, okay. The band or diadem, circumference or halo as the enclosed sun, cosmos is the heavenly realm in which celestials roam and live, were also seen as islands and streams and mountains in ether based on the energy. Okay, they are uh, 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 portrayed and explained as cords and girdled and shielded and circled and activities going on there in the ether, okay? Whereas Kronos materializes those perceptions within you, okay? So your soul receives information, goes to your spirit, then it makes whatever it is that you're feeling, it makes it into a reality for you, okay? It really does. You know that. So, I will discuss the very most important part for you, where I've put all of these things together for you to be able to understand the entire construct of the Artificer's ideas using the trapezoid. Okay, so this is the image of the trapezoid. I've drawn it for you, and seeing the trapezoid, placing a temple within it to harness the energy of the luminiferous ether, placing the poles of the sun and the moon, in other words, using Metis' power, which they believe is celestial, assigned to the arch or the arc, is the keystone above, right at the top, which is the feminine frequency, or the symbol for feminine, that is observing or looking over the um, toroctony, which is the slaughtering of the bull. In other words, looking at Mithras while he's doing that. Um, for the heavenly bodies, or as they believe, the hosts to adorn, and nothing ever really comes from it, of course, as I've said, except a lot of bull slaying and constant fixation on projections and projecting with the energy from the victims into these temples to make certain things happen. Like I said, these days it's just easy to hold a prominent figure over the barrel for his or her certain traffic fines and tell them that if they don't sink X, Y, or Z, or blow up X, Y, and Z, that they will leak these these pictures. And so that's basically why things are. That's why they need the front row shiny ones that they can use to control, while they're also using those that have passed away, their spirits, in enforcing this frequency. And when you see the image and you understand exactly what I'm showing you, this is how they see it. Okay, so it's very important to understand that the Temple of Mithraeum, or there's really such a place like that, and I've spoken about it before, is constantly active. It's active. It's not like it's not active. Okay. Um, the keystone for the archers is feminine, like I said. That was the and the deified reference to Egyptian goddess arching over the sky, Nut, but every arch is folding towards the keystone itself as the walls of the womb by which two associated gods. Janus is posted as one lion split into two lions, or one god who has two faces, and these, or the two sphinxes, or the chariot on the tarot card. These two gods are usually one. Like I said, they are mirrored of one another, which means if you are able to control something in the spirit world, you can control it in the material world, and that is how it works. That is always how it worked, and that is the recipe for how it's done. Okay, so I will leave this last part for you to think on, which is a poem that was written back in the day, where it ties into what I've explained to you about Kronos, about the rod and the snake and the pole and the ring, the things, the same symbol. A poem by Richard Savage, The Genius of Liberty, dated in 1734, published in Gentleman's Magazine, June 1738, where he writes about Saturn and about the world. Some called Saturnian when the lifted tube shows to his wondering eye our pencil globe, the realm, Taurus ring. Lead is also inside of the pencil, by the way. Pities our thirsty soil and sultry air, and thanks the friendly power that fixed him there. That is very important. The rod, staff, and snake, or the circumference, or the wheel, which is the symbol of the wheel as the chariot, as I've said in the Tarot of Gods. Tarot of the Gods. Mithraism is mankind's oldest living god. The record of his cult goes far back through the millennia, all the way from Mesopotamia. Mithraism is so popular still today that it's required as the age of belief systems that for good versus evil. The Iranian holy word name is used one of the 7 grades of initiates in Persia, which is also the 7 kingdoms over which the Leviathan reaches its head. Okay, do you understand that now? The Greeks never admitted the gods of their hereditary enemies, of course. Mithras is the constellation of Orion, and Mithras is also Orion, the resplendent leader under whom the constellation wheel through the whole of the heaven, and under whom soldiers are born and sacrificed for even till now. Attis cult began around 1250 BC. He was originally a local semi-deity of Phrygia, associated with the great Phrygian trading city of Pesimos, which lay under the lee of Mount Agdistis. This mountain was personified as a demon or daemon, whom foreigners associated with the great mother Cybele. Both Mithras and Christ were described variously as the way, the truth, the light, and the life, the Word, and the Son of God, the Good Shepherd, the Christian litany of Jesus, etc. Mithras is also represented as carrying a lamb on his shoulders, now that just as Jesus did. Mithras or Mitra is worshipped as Itu. Mitra, Mitu, Itu is in every house of the Hinduism in India. Itu is considered to be a vegetation deity. This Mitra or Mitra is believed to be the mediator between God and man, between the sky and the earth. Why the hell do you always need to have a mediator for that shit? Mithras was eventually associated with Orion, seeing Mithras as Orion himself, the Orion belt or the Orion Empire that stretched around within the Taurus. Okay, touching the material realm, the system overlay. And so, based on all of the information and understanding of Adam and Eve, that was also not even real, which was the masculine and feminine principles within every human existence that they supposedly have, that they're supposed to have within themselves. I'm going to leave you the information. When you are in alignment within your spirit, your first expression is Adamic, which means from your thoughts and in your intentions. The energy of Adam means to be the first intention, which is masculine. Eve is the feminine principle, which is the observer in which she was formed from the first intention, in which she becomes aware, which means you present Adam by speaking and doing, and Eve by experiencing and observing, and your child becomes the creation. So, in conclusion, the essential understanding of the entire work that I've shared with you relates to understanding a few things. The first thing is that if they are able to continuously create malevolent things by way of mythologies, by way of spinning stories, by way of creating duality in the continuous cycle of the torus field within the material realm, projecting into bringing in demonic elements, aspects, ritualizing it through various stuff, then they can create the duality that what they are doing within the material realm is fine, because they can create a duality by creating something that is evil. Then automatically they will place themselves in something that is not evil. Again, we are looking at the choices that are made during the age of the entire human existence, from the very beginning till up till now. And in the same process, dabbling with things that are related to the essence of human spirit, contaminating the view through which the soul observes things, and emasculating masculine frequency, and defeminizing feminine elements, such as the example of Libertas, which was actually Attis, an emasculated youth, used as the Statue of Liberty, was basically the entire protocol of trying to create some sort of illusion of control, creating chaos, creating drama, bringing all of these things in a place that can anchor spirit into belief systems that will make the automatic response of a person want to look for something that is the opposite of that, because they don't want to associate themselves with those things. And speaking about masculinity in terms of creative process, and femininity in terms of receptive of birthing the creative process, as principles within every individual, male and female, male or female, whatever, as principal elements of your spirit within you, is about fighting for your spirit, fighting for who you are, claiming yourself back to who you are, finding your original self through love, which is, as I've said correctly, and when I correct the flawed statements that I've made, as being related to how you connect in proximity to the original creative force. In all of this, I'm leaving this with you to think on, to ponder over, to dig through. This is a lengthy video, like I said from the start, and I would urge you to go through it in pieces and chapters, because as you go through this process, you will understand and see the way that things have been created to begin with. So all those that keep referring to information that is, derogatory towards certain people, certain genders, or whatever you want to look at it, those are the people that automatically want to put themselves or portray themselves in the place of the ones that are doing good, or that are good people, or they're not evil, they do this and this and that. Look, people, she said, evil is a choice, and that means I can't be in harmony with nature. So I'll take a video and show you how I walk in nature to show you that I'm not evil, is another form of choice of evil. Just like the Bellamy brothers in a song piece that they made, where they say, if I say you have a beautiful body, would you have it against me? If I say you are an angel, would you treat me like the devil tonight? So in that information in itself explains the entire process of how the frequency of the artificers work and how they operate, is by presenting things that create a pattern, because those that observe it are predictable in their reactions and responses to it. If you are unable to tap into your consciousness, if you are unable to find out if you're actually worthy of love, I would urge you to try harder to find that part inside of you, because that is the part that requires the most love then. And I'll leave that with you. All of the information and the frequencies and the things that have been created in creating the duality to birth through the black sun, a frequency that is presented and as a particular race in any way, shape, or form, is not political. It is occult in nature. The darkness is occult. You also don't have to dig into the darkness to find something that is light either. You either find it within yourself first before you are even engaging with any particular wormhole that you want to go into. Revoke and make null and void all contracts and agreements within those that have been unable to do so within themselves over the ages, within the entire existence of humanity, the beginning part. Those are the contracts that are being made null and void, so that the spirit of those that have gone before you, the ancestor spirits that have gone before those, are made free to reunite and reconnect with the original great spirit, the original creative force. May they all return back safely to where they come from. Thank you.